Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Armchair Football League podcast, our weekly podcast here. We've been off thanks to some, let's call it, unfortunate circumstances to my regular co host, Johnny. So we had to find somebody new to step in so I wasn't just, me talking to myself here. And I thought, well, I mean, we might as well stay in New Jersey. So we just walked across the hall and grabbed Bert. Bert, how you doing?
That was painful that you said New Jersey, but always
Well,
happy to come
it's
talk.
where we were. I don't know. What was I
I
supposed
know.
to do? Move your teams to New York together, okay? He wants to anyway. So,
I will definitely do that. We'll
just
build a stadium in Queens, and it'll be
yeah,
a perfect time.
yeah. So there you go. So
Perfect
you
time to
guys
do that.
get your shit together, all right? He already wants to he wants to rebrand the whole team because the Jets is dumb. So just get on that, all right?
As long as he picks a good name, I'll support it. But
He was doing like a Pride of New York thing, which is I thought was pretty dope. But I don't know if he's still doing it. Now we put him on blast. Now he has to. Um,
I'll definitely
with the
trust me. I'll
with the team builder stuff, it's possible, potentially even easy to implement. So we'll see how it goes going
probably
forward.
gonna force Brooklyn or something like that. Knowing I feel like the games do that. It's just like, oh, if you relocate it, it's always Brooklyn.
So if they put the team builder in, it can be anywhere.
Oh, that's cool.
It's
Okay,
not
never
bound
mind.
by the options, right? But
Yeah,
I don't think you'd rebrand necessarily. The Giants kind of
I mean, I would move them, but I wouldn't change their
yeah
brand. No,
move them into the actual city. Yeah, get that bad mojo of the New Jersey out of there.
absolutely.
I was trying to look it up, like how many times the Giants and Jets won on the same weekend in the playoffs. Because it just doesn't feel like it'd be too many. It feels like you guys
That's
alternated. Or like when the last
yeah.
time was, but I couldn't really find a good answer. Um,
I mean, well, with the Jets, it's easy. They haven't even made the playoffs in like 14 years, so
well,
we
that's
got to
what
go
I
beyond
mean.
that.
And then I was trying to think because the
Um,
Giants were basically Super Bowl or didn't win a goddamn game all year for a while there.
I got to remember. I don't remember if the Giants made the playoffs or not in 2009, 2010. I mean, obviously 2011 is the Super Bowl year and
That's what
stuff
I
like that.
mean.
But
I think they might have just completely missed each other in that
yeah,
regard. Um, but yeah, I was trying to get an answer. I couldn't really find a good answer. I did find a bunch of people talking about the stadium thing, which in 2008 Goodell did answer this and said, "Yeah, we'll like play them on different days.
but
Like it
I
won't
got a
be an
little
issue."
bit of lore here if you're
Ooh, I
curious.
love lore.
So apparently, MetLife Stadium has like a an opt out of the lease in 2025 this year. And I don't expect it to happen, but there has been some rumors that like the Jets may opt out of the lease and stuff like that. The one thing that would make me think that they won't do that is because they have like their practice facility in Florham Park, New Jersey, which is I don't know, I think it's like maybe like 20 minutes north of MetLife area and stuff like that. But there has been some rumors that they can opt out of the lease and then, make their own stadium. And there was times where I don't think they're going to do it now, but the area by City Field in Queens was opted to be looked at as a stadium location. So I don't think that's going to happen, but it is technically possible that the Jets just decide, all right, we're going to pick up and go. Now's the time they could do it. The Giants too, but the Giants, they don't like to change anything. Whereas the Jets back then, they tried to get their own stadium, and Dolan kind of cut that out of Manhattan. They were looking at the area Hudson Yards, and Dolan kind of lobbied against that. So once that kind of got shut down for the Olympics, then they opted to just build with the Giants a new stadium, and that's kind of what happened. So the Jets have been trying to get a new stadium, and that's why MetLife is terrible because it's like this weird amalgamation of like old school historic Giants input, and then you wanted the Jets having to have like a new school modern type of look. So it's just like this weird hybrid that looks terrible. So we'll see.
Classic.
But
James
that,
Dolan ruining everything. What's new?
of course.
But all
So
right. So inspired by your posting in general, where you kind of talked about some of the elite teams in the ACFL. It works out great to have you on to do a tier list of all the teams here. You started with obviously the elite teams, and then
mhm.
you mentioned not putting the Jets on elite because of quarterback, and then I pointed out that I mean, they've got more of a quarterback than I do. So, um, even if it's that kind of opens the door a little bit to some like I think like the Bills with Josh Allen stuff, and this is going to be going forward. I think more so. So I think the more interesting way to handle this than this season, because like
Yeah.
I mean you can look at the records or whatever. I think it's a little more interesting to go like how do I think like the Bengals are going to go forward, or the Steelers, like I said, or like the Jets, like progression of May, that sort of stuff. I think it's a little bit more interesting to go long term rather than just looking backwards. So we can go ahead and get into that with the Buffalo Bills here. We'll just go in the order of these little pictures. Why not?
Um, I would put him in elite. I think honestly, it's just bad luck or play or what do you call it? Like playbook inconsistencies there and stuff like that. They have Josh Allen. They have Brian Thomas Jr. Um, they have some pieces along the board. Like, yeah, they're going to have to be frugal. They're going to have to add some pieces here and there. But I think as long as they have that core, they'll compete. It's just like we saw in the last like 6 weeks, they were just stomping everybody. So it's just getting the playbook right and not having dumb ends. So I don't know. I would put them there. I think they could beat anybody if things work out. Their their roster is not hamstrung by crazy contracts, I think. Really, I mean, like, yeah, they're going to have some guys available. Like, they're going to lose some pieces, but they have some young players. I think they have, like, Yaya Diaby. They have Montez Sweat, so they have some edges there. They have, I'm trying to think. I thought they had someone else that was, like, a nice draft pick besides Brian Thomas. I thought, hmm, I don't remember. I look, but I think they have some pieces.
I
I don't
mean,
think the Bills are that
Mason
far away.
McCormick's played all right in real life at guard. So that's kind of like a decent offensive line option. They drafted Devin Lloyd a couple years ago. He's been pretty good. Obviously
Yeah,
with
they
Diaby
have.
as well has been a really good pick for them. They drafted Bullard, I believe, is their safety they
Yeah,
drafted.
Bowler was pretty good.
He was
Yeah.
pretty solid. So I think they've just done a good job of like filling in the team. And then obviously BTJ, absolute monster hit there in the middle of that first round last year.
Yeah, and looking now, like yeah, they're missing some draft picks this year, so they're just gonna have to, in my opinion, just kind of go a little bit of value shopping. But I would put them up there. I mean, maybe worst case, right? If people are a little bit lower, you put them in the playoff tier. Like they can't go below that, in my opinion.
I think
So
if with Josh putting it together, I think yes, they're going to be playoff tier. They got to do a little bit of work to get the defense to just play better.
yeah,
And you want to default towards trying to keep Khalil Mack because it's really the only reason he didn't put up like 20 sacks because he got hurt. But I mean, with Diaby being as good as he is, and then you invested in
honestly,
Sweat, I just think you got to kind of let him walk. I think, which is unfortunate for them.
there's news he might retire.
Well, that too, I forgot about that. I saw that report this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. I mean, for what the Bills paid to get him, if he retires, I mean, for a 1 year rental, it wasn't bad. I actually had an opportunity to do that, but I thought we weren't going to be good enough, so I didn't do it. But it's
You got Thibodeau. It's fine. You guys.
yeah, exactly. It wasn't a huge need at the time, but yeah, I mean, if he retires, then But yeah, I definitely agree. They probably let him walk. I just don't think they have the money to invest there. They need to go in secondary. I think, if anything, or at least in another position if they were to do that.
Yep. I think that pretty well said about the Bills. For the Dolphins here, I've got them in mid. It's kind of been they've been in sort of a way where like they're replacing exactly as they're losing, but they're not quite breaking through yet. Um, I think the Worthy pick could work out for them. He's getting a good amount of production in real life. I think he could step up and be a guy for them. They didn't get much out of him this year, so I think they could probably use him to try to unlock this offense a little bit better than they
Mhm.
previously had. But it's just kind of everywhere across the board. Their offensive line is really good, more so interior than at the tackle spot. But their weapons are just pretty much like, they're gonna get the job done. Like they're not gonna be the reason your offense sucks, but they got a Harris decision coming up. I did think they picked up the fifth year option, so at least they get one more year to
Let
figure
me
him out.
let me see. I think he's not a free agent. He's on the 5th year option, yeah. So they have Najee still.
And he's just
Um,
solid. Like he does a good job. He was like the third or fourth leading back this year
mhm,
for yards, just because I mean he
mhm.
gets you four like every time, which is good. If it's just that's the thing though, it's just they weren't dynamic on offense. Their defense is pretty solid as well. They're gonna have some corner questions coming up. Safeties are pretty strong. And the front's pretty solid too, like all up and down the board. So it's just like they're pretty solid. I think they need to swing on a couple more impact players. Is that I think where they're at to get into that kind of playoff tier.
I agree with that. I mean, I at least looking at their foundation, they have a lot there. They have some good pieces that you can build off of. I think they were probably a little short-sighted with some moves, like trading pick number 15 for Hopkins. I personally don't think that was a great move. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to extend him or not, but he's a free agent, and that kind of ties into your weapons comments earlier. So, but yeah, they have some pieces on defense. They have Christian Gonzalez. They have Julian Love on a great contract. They have some good pieces on the defensive line. So yeah, I think even with Tua, I don't know how he's been doing in the sim. I watched a couple of their games, but I don't know if it's more of a question of like the weapons being bad this season or just Tua has played bad. Maybe it's a combination of both.
It's kind. I mean, it's
But
just a combination of both. Like it's kind of he feeds into the mid thing. Like he put up 104 passer ratings, no joke. 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4,000 yards. Like pretty solid season overall. Um,
yeah, they have some draft picks. I think mid's fair where, especially in their division, it's going to be kind of tough. But if they get some better pieces and especially on the offense there, I think they have a shot to be like a firm playoff team. So I think that's fine.
I think they underperformed their like underlying stats to a degree this year, and I think it was still a pretty
Mhm.
solid year. They had just a collapse in the middle of the season. That's why they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah,
Um,
that's just unfortunate. Yeah,
I
they
just
lost a
think
bunch of
early on they
people.
overperformed where I expected, and then they crashed way harder than they deserved. Um,
Yeah, definitely more of a mid-tier team. I agree. But
well,
they're a good spot though. I think there's definitely a lot to work with, and like it's not like a nightmare situation at all. So
they're like,
it's
I mean, to me, they're a lot like the Steelers, like real life Steelers. Like, the thing is, though, they have a quarterback in place.
I was
So
about to say
sitting
like
in the
they have a
middle,
quarterback.
you can find elite, wide receivers or elite, secondary players or elite defensive linemen in the middle of the first round. So they're not feeling as stuck in this spot. They just need a big hit somewhere in here.
Yeah, yeah, they have plenty of money. I think they have first round pick. If I was I don't know where they're picking, but theoretically they could trade back if someone wants to trade up, get some more assets.
I think they're like
Um,
13 or so, 13 to 15.
okay, yeah, I mean they can definitely get a good player at 13 as well. I mean they definitely have a great foundation. So, but yeah, they have the quarterback question answered. You'd think so. I would build around Tua, and they definitely have a good path for that. So I'm in agreement there. Steelers is kind of a murkier situation, in real life,
Just
like
because
when
the
they do.
quarterback's the question, right? Like the roster, I think somewhat similar. Weapons are worse, obviously, but like overall, you feel like the Steelers are pretty solid and they'll put together a good team. But the quarterback's just a complete mess
Right,
most of the time. So it's like it's
right.
not the same situation we're dealing with here, but it's closer in relative status, I would say.
I would say the Steelers, if anything, are probably like what QB hell means, where you're too good to you can't even get anything. You know what I mean?
hmm
But so, but yeah, all right. I think that's a good spot. Patriots, I think, is easily rebuilding. That's a
I was between rebuilding or Acorn for them, because
But
just
okay, so what do we mean by acorn tier here? Like,
just garbage. Just relegate them. They're going to SEC
oh,
play.
hmm. Well,
No, I think they got some pieces. Like you've got a decent defensive line starting point. I think a couple young guys. You drafted Alt. They're putting the pieces together. You got Onwenu too. So you got Alt and Onwenu. To kind of anchor your offensive line, so I think it's okay. So I think you got 3 or 5 offensive linemen. You got Amari Cooper, and then
they have some young players. I think
yeah,
it's funny how we're like they won some games this year that they had no business winning, I think.
Yeah,
Which
I
is
think the bigger thing is that I think quarterback's just going to be a huge question again next year. So you're sitting now on 2 years of no quarterback play that you feel good about. Like you won a lot of games this year, and I don't think that ends up hurting them, right? Like it does, but like
yeah.
it's not like
Do
because they won
we
those games they're shit out of luck at quarterback. But it's just like I think that they're still stuck in like neutral right now.
you know what pick they are? Are they six?
Um, Let me pull it up real quick.
I think they're five or six off of
They're
memory, but
pretty
I'm not.
high. Like they're gonna get a great player here.
Like I have a feeling, to be honest, I mean, if New England of all teams probably would, have a bad taste in their mouth to reach on a quarterback, right? After Matt Corral, but in theory, I could see them being the team to draft Shador.
Shoot or
Thinking
shoot, you
about
know.
it. Because like if I know like they don't have a quarter well, they have Matt Corral, but they don't have a quarterback on under contract for 2025. So in theory, I mean they could have Corral be like their backup, if anything, and then maybe if Shador falls and he has a better process this coming weeks, maybe he's available and they take him. But I'm not really sure what they do at quarterback this season. Like maybe they go after Sam Darnold and everything, but they have some foundation pieces. But yeah, I mean,
They
in
did
terms
have
of a
Sam
bad,
Darnold at one point here, I believe, if I remember
I
this
know that's
correctly.
really funny.
So I'm
Actually,
not
yeah,
sure. I'm not sure
would he
if
want to go back?
did they have Sam Darnold actually, or was it somebody else?
I don't know if they had him or if they were trying to get him, but I definitely know they were involved with him at some point, like a year or two
Because it
ago.
was Davis
But the
Mills.
Patriots, they have like over 100 million cap
They got a lot of
next
money,
season.
so they can definitely throw some serious money at Darnold, and
They
just try to
could.
answer the quarterback. But I don't know if that makes sense either. That's the other thing. I don't think it even. I would be spending this on 20 somethings, you know shoot for the moon players on like 1 year
Yeah.
guaranteed, 2 years non-guaranteed sort of deals, right? You take shots on guys to develop into core pieces a couple years
Hmm.
down the road. I think you should take a bunch of those swings rather than trying to swing big at quarterback because I just don't think they're close. And the division is also lined up that you don't want to compete with this division. You want to compete, a couple years, make the Jets pay May or whatever, or the Bills just kind of have to recycle their lineup too much that they fall down a
Hmm.
little, rather than blowing your load on a division that you just have no shot at winning right now, talent level wise.
Right. I mean, if anything, at least if anything, if you're New England, like they have, capital and assets. They have some foundational blocks and Joe Alt, Onwenu, Sam Laporta. Defense needs work for sure. Like, I mean, they have some guys like Keon White and Marshawn Nealand, I think. I guess Travis Jones too. I think he's a little underrated, but he's
Yeah,
pretty
he's had a
good.
good year.
But yeah, secondary for sure, they need help. And Kyle Duggar, I think he was pretty bad this year, to be
He
honest with
had
you.
a rough year under Mayo. I honestly it was one of the biggest reasons why I saw a lot of Patriots fans wanting him Mayo out is because just like he didn't develop any of these young guys and everyone regressed
Yeah,
on defense. Like you're supposed to be the defensive guy at least.
yeah. I mean, they have dudes. Like, I mean, do they extend Pete Warner? I don't know, but if anything, it's going to be curious to see what they're going to spend. We have some teams who have no money to spend, so there'll be a good amount of players available. But it's definitely, I think it comes down to the quarterback question. Like, what do they do? Do they draft one, or do they just try to build as best they can and see what happens? I'm not really sure, but in terms of just pure face value roster, this is a very rough one in my opinion. So I guess I would say rebuilding because, but Acorn tier is is fine. I don't have a objection to that.
If they had one of the quarterback or like the roster figured out to a better extent, I would have put them in rebuilding. But I think they're just at square zero still.
Yeah, they have like I would say like four corner pieces that they're like super happy with.
Hmm.
And then everyone else is like, okay, it's kind of nice. They got a piece here and there maybe, but can you upgrade? Sure. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna, you know, write home about Sidey Sow, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
like I
so
think they don't have nobody else that's gonna be a part of a decent team, but it's just like they don't have anybody else that's gonna make them that. So um, yeah.
exactly.
Moving on to the Jets, you put them with quarterback questions. I might put them in elite. I don't know. I might be too
I
Drake
mean,
Mayfield.
it's a really good team. They
It's
have
so good. Yeah, it's such a good team, and with May being cheap for as long as he's gonna be, they're gonna have to supplement this through free agency rather than the draft for a couple years because of the investment they put into May. But man, I
yeah,
don't
they
know.
don't have
They're so good.
so here's the thing. I'm curious to see what they do because money wise, it's getting a little tight for them.
Uh huh.
They have they have some free agents becoming available, like Quincy Williams. We'll see what happens if they extend him or not. Bobby Wagner, Tyreek Woolen's going to need a contract.
Ooh, that's a good
Greg
point.
Newsome. Like they have lots of guys coming up who they're going to have to extend, and money's kind of tight. They have a lot of money tied up to Hassan Reddick. where hopefully for them they really need him to bounce back this year because this season on the Jets was horrendous. Um, so I I mean, they
Yeah.
have Cole Holcomb as well. They have money tied up a lot. So anyway, it's a good roster. The problem is that like what happens if May just does not step up, kind of deal.
Yeah,
Then
I didn't realize the money was that tight, but it's like it's tough because they might sit in playoffs. I guess if it's gonna be because I don't think it's quarterback questions is the thing. I think May is gonna be good enough to kind of to
yeah,
get them because like, he is this year, and this is probably the worst version of May we're gonna see.
hmm
Because I mean he had his stinkers that got him out of the division and stuff, but I feel like going forward, I think you're expecting those to be minimized. Um,
like like right now, I'm looking at like just their safeties right for 2025. They have $42 million tied up to four safeties, and I
yeah.
I have to look and see can they move on from them.
I'm sure. I'm
Um,
sure. Like if John Johnson's one of those, he's got to have nothing left. He's got to be out of there.
I gotta look,
But
but yeah,
Delpit
like
has some guaranteed money. I'm pretty sure.
Taylor Decker's a free agent, like that's stuff like that. So it's gonna be some questions. Like it's a good team, but we got to see like what happens with their vets and everything like that. They have some limited draft picks, so they might have to do some bargain bid shopping. But I definitely think playoffs is fair. They have potential to be elite, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I think they're elite right now, and it's just like, do
yeah,
they do they keep it? Because I think right now, yeah, coming to next year with the tight money, it's gonna take a couple really good value swings to probably get them back.
hmm
Which they've done a good
actually,
job at, actually. I feel like they've gotten good impact for the money they've spent most of the time. So, like with Brandon Lockett, who's been awesome for them, like stuff like that. Like you got him for a second. Like they've
yeah.
done a good job at that, but you got to keep doing a good job at that. It's tough.
I need to look at John Johnson. Actually, he's not. I don't think he's showing up on the 25 sheet. He might.
Okay,
He might be
he
a
should have
void year.
expired. Listen, he
He
should.
might be a void year actually.
Okay, gotcha.
I gotta Yeah, all right, but yeah, okay, so that changes things a little bit, but it's still like 7 million dead. But yeah, all right, I think they're definitely I would put them elite at least like right now. But yeah, longevity they have. How long can they keep it going? They have one draft pick this draft.
Yeah, and I think that like I felt good about their drafts, but they're all sitting there in sort of a weird spot. Whereas like the ones that were like really hit now need money, and
Mhm.
you gotta hopefully these last two classes like really gets you. Darnell Wright's pretty solid, but like Drew Sanders didn't quite work out for them at linebacker, which I think they had hoped would take over for the Holcomb and Bobby Wagner of it and try to keep Quincy. I
Mhm.
would imagine. So now it's like
That's
okay,
what I would do. I would if I was them, I would keep Quincy and then just roll out with Sanders and hope he develops type of thing and have that be like my main two core. And, obviously if they can get another guy, for value cheap or in the draft or, undrafted free agent, they could do that. But that's what I would do personally. But
yeah. I mean,
we'll
I
have to
think it's a
see what
good
they
spot
do.
to save Quincy. Get rid of everybody else. Because I think Quincy's good enough, and then I think with the safeties extra, right, you can just move one of those to the box on your money downs, and hope Drew Sanders is athletic enough to run sideline to sideline for you.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe their goal is to run with Peppers and Delpit as like their main guys and get someone cheap as well. So they could definitely free up some money. They have a big commitment to Dalton Schultz, so they'll stick with him.
Yeah,
Drake London's going to need. Actually, wait, is he the 22 draft or 21?
should have
I
been
think he's the 22
22.
draft, right?
22.
Okay, so it's a fifth
He was
year
a first
option
rounder,
year.
so a fifth year option, yeah. But you're still
Okay,
looking at that extension this year, going into year three.
yeah,
You start
okay,
to look
yeah. So
forward at that
that's
at
on the
least.
table. Um, so trying to think what else. Like, I don't see like any easy money. Like I guess they can trade Newsom and free up 16 million if someone gives them a good offer. But if I'm the Jets, especially if they're looking to compete, if someone's like, "Hey, I'll give you a fourth rounder for him," like, do you want to do that? You have a great trio, so yeah, it's definitely some future questions. But they have some good young players. They just got to spend their money wisely. I think so. I think playoff tier is perfectly fine. I think they can compete with anyone in the AFC right now. Are they favored? Probably not, but I think they can go toe to toe with anyone.
Yep. All right. Into the north now. Baltimore. elite.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Haven't seen too much on their forward looking. They'll have edge questions with Vaughn out, sort of thing. But I mean, it's
Hmm.
Lamar. It's their draft was so good for their wide receiver unit. Olave is going to be a bit of a question mark because of the injuries and stuff. But man, you draft two fucking home runs at wide receiver now. Like the offense feels set. You got Achan still. Uh,
Yeah.
and like running back tag's cheap. Like you can still bank on him for an extra year at least
Yeah.
if you really felt like it. So it's like, yeah, you feel great about the offense and the defense. I mean, just keep patching it together. Essentially, you got a couple core guys, Madubuike, who I believe they did put a big contract on, um, and corners with Joey Porter Jr. You expect to kind of take a step forward next year, I would think. Kind of cut
Hmm.
down the penalties. I think he's just going to be a solid enough guy with Marlon Humphrey. Um, I just think you feel good about the whole kind of roster where it's at. Um,
They really just need, honestly, just in terms of like their defense. I mean, they can use like a young person at linebacker and then edge, but like that's really it. Like they don't really have that many holes. I mean, Deontay Banks has had a down year. I mean, it's kind of, now in hindsight, I probably would have just kept what's his name? Oh, Deron Bland. I think that's what the trade they did. I guess he didn't want to pay
but
him.
yeah, say would they pay their corner three right now, or maybe he's corner two? But would they pay him because he's going to be an RFA this year? And still, it was a little
I
weird year, but I would imagine somebody pays a second rounder for him.
Yeah, potentially. We'll
So
have to see. I mean, I don't know how Dallas can afford him, but we'll get there. But yeah, I mean, looking at 2025, it's going to be a little tough for them. Like I think they have 27 guys under contract with four. It's saying 5 million right now, but that's using this year's salary cap number. It would probably be closer to like 20 million and stuff. And they can free up. Okay, yeah, they can cut Clowney. They'll save like 14 million there.
yeah,
Um, Christian Darrisaw is on his fifth-year option. I assume they look to extend him. Lamar Jackson is obvious restructure. Okay, so they could free up some money, like, so they're fine.
they
They just
have
got to
impact
add.
pieces. They just need to kind of fill in their starters
Yeah,
essentially.
they just got to fill in the roster. They
They
have two
might be the
draft picks.
Khalil Mack team if he plays. I wouldn't be
Oh,
shocked if
absolutely.
they throw some money at Mack just for the last year. If that comes down to it. Because again, I just don't think Buffalo needs to. So that would be the highest impact edge that I think would be not attached to any draft compensation. I would guess if
Hmm.
it comes down to it. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I could definitely see them doing that,
or they
like
just bring
kind of
back
like Von
Vaughn.
Miller
Like Vaughn will
2.0.
still be available, I'm sure. Um,
Oh
be a
yeah,
cheaper deal.
yeah. I mean, I think Green Bay's gonna have a lot of money because they basically just didn't field the roster this year, so they'll probably. I'm assuming they're definitely gonna tag him and maybe keep or not. But yeah, I mean, if Baltimore's like, hey, we want Vaughn, we'll give you something for him. I'm sure Acorn will entertain it. So
Yeah, the
yeah, there's
linebacker
definitely an
tag
option.
is pretty steep, so that's a tough thing, right? Because you're putting 20 million on a guy for an extension. Is Bond
Oh,
on a
it was
1 year gonna get close to 20 a year? I think
mhm.
Acorn has to do it, but then you're talking about your extension off of that, and it's just tough to get him to go. Is he gonna go down to 12 from there?
I,
Like probably not. He probably would ride out the
took a,
10 or the 20 and then see how next year goes. Um,
I took a quick look at I took a quick look at the Packers cap space. It's a lot less than I expected it to be because they're taking like 55 million dead cap in 2025. Um, but yeah, I mean you're completely right there. Like they're looking at right now like 30 million in cap because they're eating 55 million in dead cap, but they can free up some more because of Jordan Love and everything. But yeah, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just lobs the trade Bond. I don't know.
Also, I did say Von Miller, but the Vaughn is also a very good idea for them. Von Miller is
Oh,
their own free agent. Just try to bring it
yeah,
back.
yeah, like that's what they kind of did. Like that was like their they had like two free agent old not free agent, but they had like two old, edges like a vet there.
Hmm.
That's at it. Jeez, I can't talk. Because like, Felix Uzama and Hayden Turner haven't really worked out for them, but it's a good draft for edge at least. Like maybe they hit it again this year and stuff. Um, but yeah, they just need to fill out some holes. They have like the cornerstones. They have elite players. I think, they're an elite team. Really not much to really say there.
Nope, not much to say at all. And then for Cincinnati, I am not sure when the wheels come off, but I'm gonna put him in elite, and then we start talking about it because I don't know. I mean, you have like the cup, but they pay T Higgins. Pitts is
Mhm.
at least another year. You know, they've I think all their corners except for Gilmore are locked up for next year still.
That's not true.
Oh,
They
is it Gilmore and
Jalen Ramsey
Ramsey?
is a
Ooh.
free agent.
Okay, well that gets interesting then. So defense didn't play
Mhm.
well this year anyway, let
They're
alone
taking a look here. So Chase Young's a free agent.
which that was a
Um,
given. He was a rental.
yeah. I think Teron Armstead might be a free agent here.
Really
Let me
already?
see. Yeah, so Armstead's a free agent. I'm
Did
trying
they
to see
sign
if
him to like
anyone
a
else.
2 year then? Damn, I thought. I mean, it worked out. It works out obviously, but
Yeah, like
the wheels might fall off faster than I thought. What's
they have
cup?
some
What's
money.
cup? Is cup still this year?
Cup. Let me see. Yeah, they still got him. I think they got 2 years of him,
Okay.
so they're okay. Yeah, they have Cup and Higgins, and they have Pitts. I mean, I personally think Pitts is a bust in real life, but here he's been really good. So curious to see what happens on that front. Like, I'm sure maybe they'll look to extend him type of thing.
Kyle Pitts
Um,
is so Evan Ingram coded right now.
yeah,
He's gonna
yeah.
he could go somewhere and be good again and be like, I was always there. But right now he just can't catch the ball.
You know, it's funny. Like, when I first started, there was definitely talks about like, they were not going to keep Ingram and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, and I didn't even. This was so. It's been so like what has been a frustrating point with Joe Shane, where like it's very clear that they won't extend someone, and then there'll be talks about them trading him in the deadline, and then they don't do it.
Hmm.
So I was like, this was back in 2022 or whatever it was when I traded you Ingram because I was like, oh, I'm definitely not keeping him, so I might as well just extend him. I was going to try to follow what your life was going to do, but yeah, there's definitely. I think they extend him. Joe Burrow they can restructure, of course, but yeah, I mean they have a lot of free agents. I feel like this is like their big year to win it. I mean, like I don't think they'll be dead, but it's gonna be tough. They only have actually they don't have a single draft pick in 2025. Oof,
Oof.
that's gonna be kind of tough.
Saving a
I
lot of
mean,
time though, that's for sure.
yeah, I mean, like I guess I have to. Maybe they can tag Ramsey and trade him. I don't know what he'll get in a tag and trade type of thing. I mean, I don't think they want to extend him because then they also have to extend Sauce, like his fifth year
Yeah.
option.
I
Um,
mean, if they can convince him to play out at the tag, that's not the worst.
yeah, it's
They
not
don't
the
have a lot
worst.
of money, but it's just like you save it long term by eating it in 1 year. Or to convince him to take a deal that's even with the tag that spreads the money a little.
Mhm.
Because I mean, this is the window, right? Once Ramsey's gone, and once especially if they have to re-up Jesse Bates, or you got Logan Wilson in there in the middle who they just paid, I think. Not 100%
They're
sure, or they're in
not
talks
not
for.
like last year or something like that. The Bengals are propped up by like six elite players. I feel like
Yeah, so it's like once
is
they
really what
start to
it is.
chip away at those, does Burrow keep it going? I think you saw the cracks this year. Um, but then
Yeah, they were
again,
struggling.
they still turned it on at the end and are a team nobody wants to play.
Hmm.
So,
Oh, I agree. I mean, there was definitely a time I think maybe like week 10ish or something like that where they lost a couple games, and after they made a couple more win now moves, it was looking like, oh crap, did they like misevaluate and everything? And they were able to turn around in the end and make it in. So right now, I would say they are an elite team, though. I think they could beat anybody, but probably the wheels fall off fairly soon. Like I think their window's closing a little bit, or unless they get really lucky and hit on some late guys, or get like some value free agent. Kind of like in real life Zach Bond, where they sign him for dirt cheap and then all of a sudden he plays really well, type of thing.
mhm.
But as long as they have Burrow and Higgins and stuff like that, they'll be a good team.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, now switching gears, Cleveland. Uh,
Uh,
Ritter's their quarterback.
well, yeah. Okay,
Garrett
so
wants
here
out probably now because of the real life stuff. Not wanting to rebuild. Like this is a clear rebuild at the very worst. Like,
it is a rebuild. That's
and then you
more
got
Kyle.
Hargrave in the middle. He's fine, but I mean, he's even got questions in real life of what's gonna happen with him. He's getting cut. Um,
I think they cut Hargrave as well.
yeah, so it's like he's probably their next best player. Do I think? I mean, Quinyon obviously. You Quinyon. They just traded Ward.
Defense, yeah. I mean, they have DJ Jones, who's like fine, but probably they cut him too. I think I could see them cutting both Hargrave and DJ Jones.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that defense needs work. They have a lot of draft picks. This roster really needs work. I mean, do you think Nick Chubb retires? I think I remember hearing that somewhere. Like he may look into doing that, but I don't know if that was like legit or just kind of like a
I feel
fan.
like he's never going to retire. I don't think he's. I
Yeah,
don't
probably
think
not.
he's blown his knees up 4 times and he hasn't even contemplated retiring any of those times. I think
Mhm.
I think he's just a baller, dude.
Yeah, I guess they can count on him for now. They have Tajay Spears as well. Uh, they have Zach. Oh wait, no. Oh no, they do. Okay, but he's a free agent. They have Ritter. I guess fine backup, whatever. But yeah, I mean, even okay. Wait a minute. I think there's an error in Becton's. He has like a 31 million cap hit in
No, that's real.
2027. That is that for real?
No, it's not.
I was gonna say like, what kind of contract did the Jets give him? Holy shit! I gotta.
uh,
Um,
they loved
yeah,
it,
but
man. They're honestly, it might be the cap hit, but it's like all fake. Like after this, they can
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. It's probably a fake one, but
No,
I couldn't
I don't
remember exactly
I
what he
don't
gave.
think
But
so, but it could have been like they restructured him down. You know that how those things go, and it looks worse than it
mm,
is.
definitely acorns here. I mean, this roster's brutal. I mean, it's and, you know it's funny too because Cleveland started. You
Well,
know, they won a couple games. Like I
it
think
was Stafford
when
went on a fucking heater. The Bears couldn't
yeah,
get that from Stafford, but Stafford went on an absolute heater and won them a few games, and they ended on an 11 game losing streak. It's like very clearly like a regression to the mean, but also just
yeah,
they gave up on the year entirely after going 4 and
yeah.
1.
Morechild definitely came in. He was like, "This is a disaster," and then he made some moves. He definitely made some good trades. Like I personally, I probably would have kept Denzel Ward, you know, because he's not old. I think he's like 27. You have him and Quinyon Mitchell. I think that's a great duo. Like it just becomes a hole you have to fill.
But
But other
I
than
think
that,
my
I like
problem is like what do you have on this entire roster? What do you have to build around? Like you have Garrett, Chubb, Spears combo, and
what do you
Quinyon
turn it
and
around?
Ward, right? Like that's all you got. So it's like why even keep Garrett and Ward at this point?
I see. I
Garrett's
disagree. I
30.
mean, like he traded Stafford. They have like 90
Eh.
million in cap where that could turn around quick. They have plenty of assets. They could definitely cut Hargrave. Well, actually, Hargrave is basically fully guaranteed. So never mind. I don't think they cut him. But DJ Jones they can, so they can free up
They
more.
got 90 now, but it's 35-40 to Stafford then at that point.
What do you mean?
Like Stafford's 40 million a year. So you eat
No,
into
I'm okay. I'm okay with them trading Stafford. I just thought
yeah, I
I
was saying
personally would have kept Ward.
once you decided to trade Stafford, there's just no hope for this team turning around in the next 2 years. I think
Yeah, no, it's full rebuild.
it's full
That's
rebuild, and I don't think Garrett's
yeah,
even going to sign on for that. But it's like if even he
yeah, that's
is,
gonna be an
like
interesting
why would
question. Yeah,
you want to? You're going to then turn around and hope your 32, 33, 34-year-old edge rusher is still going to be all world. He's probably going to be,
right.
but like that's where you're sitting at as a team. It's a lot of the Khalil Mack Raiders discussion, I guess, to an extent. You obviously hope things turn out better than that, but it's just like I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean
I
maybe.
can't blame anybody for keeping an elite player. Like it's hard to find those guys, so I can't blame them for trying to keep him. But kind of with the real life tea leaves, it's just like, do you wait until it's a demand, or do you see if you can't exercise some leverage and get a bidding war going?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's gonna be curious to see what happens. I know I have my opinions of what I would do, but curious to see what Warchild would do in this case. But yeah, I mean, in terms of looking where it's at, I mean, it's bleak in the sense where the roster is right now, but they have a lot of tools to get out of that. So I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean they could pay Darnold a bunch, buy a bunch of those mid-level free agents to kind of raise the floor of the team, and then just start swinging big in the draft, and they could be back. No one's
They can.
ever that far away. I mean, I always believe that like, in a sense, no team is more than 2 off seasons away from winning. They have to be two
Absolutely.
really good off seasons, but because like your whole roster turns over every 3 years, minus like 4 players, right? So you
Hmm.
expect to be able to turn your roster over in two if you're aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, like at least looking here, like they need to address the offensive line. They need to address defense. They need to address. I mean, they have George Pickens
Yeah, so
and
wide
like I
receiver
guess
outside of that.
Yeah, oh, they don't even have.
Troy Franklin
Uh,
is number two, probably long term.
yeah, like they need a tight end. I mean, Njoku, if he was here, would have been really good. But yeah, I mean, it's curious to see what happens. But yeah, then you have needs all over, and but I can definitely see them go. Well, I don't know. Part of me thinks like there'll be a team that just is like, oh, we'll just get one in 2026. But you never know what circumstances might happen with Garrett, and maybe they do have to sign Garnold, and they could turn around the roster quick. Unfortunately, the division's really tight for them, though.
Yeah, it's a similar thing to the Patriots thing. Just to is it even worth trying to push it? These are the two
Yeah,
best divisions in the AFC. It's not like the South, where the South is in reach for any team. Like
right.
you can make an offseason of moves and be in range in the South.
Mhm.
Doesn't feel as nice in the
Yeah,
North or East.
and I think funny, with the Steelers, I feel like the tier is like perfectly suited for the Steelers right there.
Yeah, well, I
With
thought there'd be more teams around this, but then we end up moving the Jets down or up and then down. Um, so I'm not sure who else is gonna have the quarterback
I feel like it's
questions.
hard. Like the hard thing is that how often do you have a team that's elite but doesn't have like a quarterback?
Yeah, honestly, I'm probably just gonna delete this one because I just don't think it's going to. Um,
I mean, like maybe 49ers because like Aaron Rodgers.
but that's
Like
the
I'm trying
same
to
kind
think.
of thing. They have a lot of similar Jets level roster questions. I feel like.
Yeah, like I think I kind of agree maybe getting rid of it because at worst or sorry, like at best maybe we can pick like three or four teams that fit that, but even then that's probably a stretch.
Yeah.
So,
So,
um
then
but anyway,
speaking
I would
of,
put in terms of right now, you guys are elite. There's definitely some questions though. Long term, I would say solidly a playoff team and but there's stuff that needs to be answered and you have draft picks, money's going to be tight, but you're definitely kind of running, at least from my opinion, on like some good veterans. But you're kind of in a similar situation with the Bengals, where it's like, okay, assuming you don't get like a young infusion of talent, what happens? You know what I mean?
I feel like more so than the Bengals, I've got young guys
Yeah, yeah,
playing
yeah, yeah. Don't
roles
get me
too.
wrong.
So like we've got really like it's just if quarterback gets solved in a real way, that's it. It's not like the Jets where it's like you kind of have to figure out most of the rest of the roster in like a little way. Like it's just
Well,
if I find a good answer at quarterback, it's elite. If I find a okay answer, I'll stay here in playoffs.
that's assuming. Okay, so like assuming you get an answer a quarterback next season, yeah. But like, what happens if that's 2026,
Yeah.
where you have guys like your secondary is basically all vets.
Yeah,
Like,
corner is going to be a question mark. Safety is one I feel like you can always find.
yeah,
Safety, you can
you got
always find a
Mesa.
free agent 80 overall safety and pay him $8 million and you're fine.
Yeah,
So like I feel like safety's not really a big concern for any team to an extent, but like with an
hmm
all pro, at least a pro
right.
bowler over there, you can kind of patch together the other side.
You
Um,
do have Chanel and Henley at linebacker, so you're good there, for young guys. Cameron Hayward, hopefully doesn't retire
he's
soon.
pretty young. He'll be all right.
Isn't
He's
he like
he,
34?
he's got he's older than that. He's 37.
Oh wow. Yeah, you know,
He's
he's
ageless, dude.
yeah, he's timeless. That'll work. I mean, yeah, Jalen Carter. I mean, okay, maybe I was being a little harsh.
That's
So
what I mean. I've drafted a lot over the entire ACFL. So like,
yeah,
and it's been pretty decent hit rate to the point where it's like I don't really have a ton of positions where I don't have somebody. He's 35. Hayward is. I was looking him up. Gonna be 36 next year. So,
yeah. All
but yeah,
right.
he's
So I wouldn't.
so yeah. But it's been like there's young guys throughout. In a way, it's like the roster is pretty much stabilized. Like I've got guys in waiting in the offensive line, less so on the defensive line, specifically edge. But I've taken a lower level investments on edge because I
Yeah, I
have
mean,
T.J. Watt
offense, you
on the
definitely
upside.
have some young guys you
Yeah,
can feel good about, and I mean, maybe you guys go after Sam Darnold or maybe like a Justin Fields resurgence, give him
yeah,
some resurgence over here. But
yeah. So that's it. I mean, it's just whatever the insert quarterback is depends on if it's a good-ish to good quarterback. Elite can be right back in play because all I've gotten this year is good-ish. So like
yeah,
if it's just
yeah,
like, I don't really like that, playoffs probably. And if it's a disaster, we can go down to mid. If I choose really poorly, uh,
I think playoffs is fair. I mean, it's a good roster. I mean, even now you've been stopping people. So so even if then if like next season or beyond you lose a couple guys, it's still a very good team. And I mean, yeah, it's a tight division, so maybe you have some bad luck go your way and you drop the ball to like Baltimore and Cincinnati both times, and that makes it harder, but still very much in the mix for playoffs. So I think that's a fair spot for you.
And then now we start in the AFC South, which is just like Houston.
Houston, Houston gives me heartburn.
I don't know what to do with them. It's like they're not really rebuilding, but
I
like
would put
I don't are they mid even though?
I would put mid, and I think the Texans do what they can to like be worse than they are. I'm not trying to sound mean,
Yeah.
but maybe that's just like the exact opposite of like things I would do. They do, but then they still succeed. I mean, I they built a pretty respectable team, honestly. Like if you just kind of look at it in a vacuum, like they have Garrett Wilson, they had Christian McCaffrey, like Baker was turned out to be like a very nice value quarterback for them, and Tunsil, guys like excuse me, like Andrew Phillips, Tarheeb Still,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they even like Brian Brzee, like they had a bunch of like young players they could build around without like destroying their pick situation or cap. But then they kind of want to move them. Like I understand they had Kyron Williams and Christian McCaffrey, so they wanted to move one. They gave Chase Edmonds a lot of money, but whatever. I guess they can cut him. I don't know how much guaranteed there is, but um, yeah, I would say mid or even like playoffs. Assuming they keep their core, like they have players on the offensive line, like Wyatt Teller. They drafted Cody Mock, who I don't think he's done very good, but I mean it's a young guy. Hopefully he develops, and they have Tunsil, and so I think they could compete in the South. It's just they had like a disaster second half of the season. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's just for trading. I don't know if CMC, them getting rid of him, was like the catalyst that caused that fall. You know what I mean? But in terms of like where their roster stands, it's probably, I guess, on paper the best one in the South, in my opinion. At least you can
Uh,
argue that it is.
Tennessee I think is the best one in the South.
Yeah, but like, is it far and away the best one in the South? Probably. I don't think so.
I don't know. Probably not.
Like, you can argue. My point is that you can argue,
Yeah.
and then at that point, like, especially for how they started the season, where didn't they start off like 6-0 or something like that?
Yeah, they were up like 5-1, 6-0. Yeah, they were like 4 games up in the division like instantly. And then
Yeah.
they lost
So
by 2. Just one because they won week 18. But yeah, it
I
was a rough go around.
personally, I I personally would put playoff just because I would probably favor them, or at least if anything, I would have them be against the Titans to win the division going forward, assuming like they keep things status quo and they keep building and stuff like that. But at worst case, mid is fine.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
gonna stick with mid because I don't think I'm gonna put in a single South team as an actual playoff team. Um,
mhm.
so
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all right, that's fine. Like, I definitely think their roster's pretty good, but at the same time, you know, will I put them as a lock to win the division? No. Would I favor them over teams like, the ones that we put at pop? Probably not either. So yeah, I think that's fine, I guess.
all right, let's pick up the pace just a little bit here. Colts
That's fine, yeah.
rebuilding. I don't. I mean, they have some pieces, but I'm just not sure where they're gonna go at all. Um,
Yeah, I would put rebuilding. At least that's what I would do. I mean, they have some guys, but yeah, I agree with you. They need to pay some players if they want, but there's definitely some question marks, especially like a quarterback and everything like that. Um, but yeah, I don't have any complaints there. So I would say rebuilding, like, they have some draft picks, they have some cap, they have some players, but there's some more work to do. So that's kind of where I stand with that.
Jags are between rebuilding and Acorn, I'd say. Um, they don't
Uh,
have a quarterback, somehow under, but like so that's the big thing is what they're gonna do at quarterback. I just don't think their roster's that good either. I think they're on the fall from their kind of runs in the playoffs where they were somewhat pretty
I put it in
short-sighted.
A tier.
You put them
I
where?
personally put it A. I put it A
Yeah,
core tier, honestly,
because like it's
just because like
Josh Hines Allen. I think Zach Allen was a good signing. If they still have him under contract.
well,
Cashman was good. It's just like, I don't know.
yeah, they have some good players. The problem is that they also have players who are very overpaid,
Yeah,
which makes things hard.
yeah.
Like Zach Allen has a 27 million cap hit
Ooh,
in 2025. Sean
yikes.
Murphy Bunting has a $21 million cap hit. Um, any other ones? I mean,
Should make a Saints tier.
yeah, they have DJ Humphreys, who I
Oh,
guess is
that was a
fine,
rough
but
one. Yeah, that was a rough
yeah,
tier.
like DJ Humphreys is 19 million. Basically this year, next year, and then 22 in 2027. Mike
Those
Gesicki is
damn
19
OSU
million.
contracts.
DJ Shark, is almost 19 million cap hit as well. So can they get out of that though?
I'm sure they get out of like half of those at this point, but still,
Yeah, yeah, they
it's
can. So
rough.
they could free up some money. So even if you think about it, like if they cut a lot of like these really overpaid guys, right? Where does that leave them? So that's why I kind of go with like Acorn tier, where it's like they got some good players. They're definitely embracing the rebuild, but like at face value, it's probably like a bottom tier roster, especially because like there's no quarterback and stuff, and they have not a ton of like young people that they're excited about, I guess. Or like you have Josh Allen,
Well, they basically didn't
you know,
draft for 3 years, so it's like,
right? So that's kind of like in their position now, where they kind of need a reset, and they starting to get some draft picks now. Like they have 2 seconds and everything, and then 2026 they have some more, and they'll free up some money. Um, but I think those draft picks they kind of recouped from selling bets. They had like none to begin with, so
yeah,
that's why I kind of think Acorn tier. Like it's they have some pieces to build around, but it's a long way to go, in my opinion. What do you think?
Tennessee.
You're still in a rebuilding tier with him?
I was between it, but I think just looking at the roster, I think they're definitely Acorn. Um,
Okay. Titans, I would put mid. If we're putting Houston mid, I'll put Titans in mid as well.
yeah, I think they're just kind of the same tier. One of them's got to make the playoffs, but like I don't know. I like some of the stuff Tennessee's got going on. I think they could.
Right.
They are the one I feel best about graduating this tier.
Me too.
Um, it's
Bo
like
Nix was a good pick.
Bo Nix has been good. If he takes another step, like you start talking about best quarterback in the division,
Mm-hmm.
potentially Baker's pretty good. So it's like it's still a step, but
The Titans, honestly, the Titans had a great offseason.
they really
Like,
did. They nailed it, dude. It
they had
just
a
sucks
great
that they
offseason.
did the Watson thing earlier, and now they don't have a
I
first
know.
round pick. That's one of the bigger things because I could have even put them in playoff tiers if they had their full picks and money was looking good, but they kind of
Mm-hmm.
threw some of that away on a pipe dream, and now
Yeah,
they're sitting a
at
little
least they,
behind.
yeah, at least they kind of like realize like, hey, they made some mistakes, and it looks like they're getting better, and they're embracing it. So I think they're in a good spot. I mean, they have some free agents they got to extend, but they don't have like a huge amount of money tied up to stuff. Like they're fine. So I definitely agree. This is probably the team that I think has the best like long term potential in the division, and Houston's still I think a fine team. Like they definitely have some good players, but I think long term, especially if like the Titans are still on this path, I think they'll overtake them. So, but for now, I think mid is fair.
All right,
Yeah.
Broncos. It's
Uh,
weird because I feel like they're mid, but
yeah,
like
I feel like the Broncos were a team. Like I definitely noticed like there's probably some teams that like I'm harsher on in terms of just like how I view the roster. Probably Broncos is one of those teams where I'm like, ooh, I don't like this roster. Sorry, but not in a mean way, but just like needs more work. But yeah, they're probably mid. I think. Like they traded for Ward. They still have Bradbury. I guess it's fine for them. For one more year. They had a good draft with Cooper DeJean, and they definitely have some players. But like I thought the trade for Nico was really good as well. Like get that going, and they have Devonta Smith. It's just what do they do at quarterback?
I mean Gino's
Running back.
good for this year, but going forward, it's like what's gonna be in Seattle and stuff. I think Gino's a fine quarterback. They
Oh
didn't
yeah,
get
I
a lot
forgot
out
they.
of him this year,
Okay, oops, I
but
totally forgot they had Gino. Okay, that
yeah,
I
that's
thought they had like what was it like? I don't even know who I thought. Okay, that helps it a little bit. Oops, that
yeah.
makes more sense.
So
All
Gino's
right.
good, but like he's a little underrated in Madden, and he hasn't really played that well. So it's tough for them to take that step forward. They've had moments where they looked obviously unbeatable. Um, but yeah, I think cornerback two is going to be a question because honestly, Bradbury he never got activated this year because the team was not interested in him playing. They would rather him just stay on the roster on IR.
Yeah.
Because he played here because it was very clear that they just told him to stay home essentially. So it's like he's
Yeah.
fine. They didn't want to deal with a roster spot.
He was
Uh,
really bad.
he was
Like
yeah.
he fell off a cliff, and they can't really cut him. I remember looking at it a while back. Like
Hmm.
he's just guaranteed a lot of money, and so they're just eating the caps at that point and just play younger guys, I guess.
They're just using him as a
They have Cam
coach. That's
Taylor-Britt,
essentially
who's
what we're working.
fine, but
Yeah,
yeah, corners in need. Uh, they had a good Andrew Van Ginkel was a great signing for them. I mean, they still have Bradley Chubb, so edge is not a huge need.
they killed it this free
Johnny,
agency for sure. It's setting them up
yeah, they
big
did.
time. It's just the offensive line's still just a mess.
Yeah, like even looking at
Tackles,
all right,
especially.
yeah, tackles. Ooh,
They might have to. They have to sign Armstead to have anything, but it's like Armstead's a big question mark for injuries and everything like that. Like, is he even going to
Mhm.
keep playing? Like, how many more injuries is he going to take?
I
He
don't
played
know.
relatively healthy this year in real life, I think, for the Dolphins. But even still, it's just like all those hits, all those injuries taken on his body. Like, is he going to be a real viable
He'll
option?
be a
But he might be the
stopgap if
only one.
anything. Yeah, he'll be like a stopgap if anything. I think maybe they'll try to be like, oh, we'll have Isaiah Wynn go out to tackle again, and
That was a
even though he hasn't played
disaster this year.
tackle,
20 plus sacks given up this year.
yeah,
Can't. I don't think you can
yeah.
run that back.
So I'm not really sure where they go. Yeah, but there's definitely some pieces and stuff, and they have a lot of draft picks, and money's fine. So yeah, mid is fine, especially in that division. It's also really tough. So I think that's a good spot. And
Kansas
I don't
City
know,
next up.
Chiefs. I mean, you've got to put them in playoffs because they have Mahomes and Kelsey. At that point, like
They're the
it's
most
more.
playoffs team that doesn't make the playoffs ever.
Yeah, I mean, like it's kind of absurd at that point. Like they really, I'm looking at their roster now. Like they have a good amount of young players and stuff like that. Like it's not a bad situation,
This draft
but
was a step in the right direction, I would say. The
yeah, it's just
linebackers they
like
hit pretty good on. Polk obviously was kind of a bit of a misstep. Played good here, but
mhm.
mainly by necessity. Somebody had to do something on this offense.
Their corner room is like not good. I'm just thinking
Non-existent.
about it. Like
Do they even have
if you look
corners?
at their roster, it's not like this overpowering. Like Kobe Turner was a cool trade. I like it. I
He's good.
personally would have kept Chris Jones,
I
but at
would have
least
kept
like
him
getting
too, but at least Kobe's fun.
yeah, like they got dudes. It's just honestly, I mean, like this team is. I mean, Tyron Tracy was a good pick, of course, but
Devondre Sweat's worked out really good.
yeah,
Really, I mean, the
but
biggest thing was is anybody even going to draft him at the time, right? It's just like, is this guy out of the
right,
league because of the character issues and he got the DUI like literally right before the draft and all that? Just good on him for just saying like, nah, we'll just take him, it'll be fine. Um,
yeah. I mean, like they have so many draft picks now where they could just like keep throwing darts to get some more young players, or maybe they're at a point now where they're like, okay, we reset a little bit, like our cap is not dire anymore. Like maybe now they'll start trading for some value vets and stuff like that to really build the team. Or I don't know,
but yeah,
lots of things that
Gabe
they can
Davis
do.
didn't give him much of anything. Bourne's been solid, but he's like you want him to be solid as your third.
Yeah,
So they got to invest in this offense.
they gave Deontay Hardy like $12 million and stuff like that. I think
It's
he's gonna
just
be gone.
he's got to be gone. Yeah, I'm not sure how the
Um,
Davis contract was structured. I'm guessing he's got guaranteed this year, so he's going to be number two at least this year.
Yeah,
Um,
he's got guaranteed. He's fully guaranteed this year.
yeah,
So
just that's kind of
yeah, I mean, this
standard.
is
So the offensive line's solid though. Fuaga's been a beast.
yeah,
Braxton Jones is going to be a good enough tackle to start. So like they did some good things there. They're taking
yeah.
some steps forward for sure.
They actually have some depth and stuff too. Like they got some good guys. Like it's they can keep building. It's just I think just fleshing out, especially like in the secondary. But yeah, easily a playoff team.
They just got to take it more seriously on trying to win now, I would say, because that's what happened a lot with the secondaries. It's just like we're gonna play Quandre Diggs out of corner. It's like that's just not gonna work. It did not last very long. It's just like go be a little bit more aggressive here,
Hmm.
because you got Patrick fucking Mahomes. Like let's give us something here.
I know. Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, like I can understand if you had like a question mark quarterback, but you got the quarterback right now, so
Yeah,
it's but anyway, I mean like it's unfortunate they missed the playoffs, but they still won like 11 games, and I'm sure, going forward they'll definitely, have some better pieces and be a much more I'm sure you think they'd win more games. So yeah, playoff tier is totally fine. I mean, you could even argue maybe elite because of Mahomes and Kelsey, right? But
yeah. And it's just
uh,
not elite because they've held the roster back to such an extent. This team hasn't
right,
been dominant the whole time. So it's like they
they
should
treated it like
really they should be elite with Kelsey winning, or being basically the offensive player of the year the last 3 years. I don't know if he won it. He didn't win it last year, but like he was second, and like he was at least top three before too. So it's like you have the offensive player of the year almost every year, and you have a borderline or actually MVP every year, and you're not in the playoffs because the roster wasn't there. So get the roster there when we put you in elite.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like they treated it like a rebuild and stuff like that. I understand wanting to retool. I think they went a little too far in the other direction. Like I would have kept Chris Jones, but yeah, they'll be. I think they'll be just fine. So, and the Raiders, I'm excited to see what Vic does.
I,
I'm
I, I, I feel like they gotta kind of be in rebuilding. I want to put them in
I put him
mid,
at mid. I
but
put him at mid.
here's
Just because like, go ahead. I'll
here's
let you. You
here's
go.
the thing with why I think rebuilding, because the offensive line has a couple of spots they think they need to look at, uh, just in general. I think the interior is a little bit sus, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me pull it up.
They got some solid guys. I mean, they have Eric McCoy at center.
Is
They have John
Simpson,
Simpson, who was a good sign. He
is
was
he
a
not
good sign.
expiring though?
No, they got him next
Okay,
year.
so I was thinking Simpson was expiring. Godeke will move to tackle for sure because Broderick's just going to be not an option, I would say.
Yeah, like I would say
Oh
they
well,
maybe need a left
who's
tackle.
left? Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, so yeah, left tackle because they don't have Colton Miller.
They have Titus Howard as like depth or maybe like a spot on the
Eric
line like a
McCoy,
guard or
yeah. So that's what I
something.
mean. I think two of their spots are a question mark.
Yeah,
Right
but they
tack
have
or right
Christian
guard and left
McCaffrey.
tackle, and left tackle's a big one. Uh,
Offense needs work. Don't get me wrong.
so
Like they
and the weapons
definitely.
are pretty rough, but I love their defensive line. Though I think you might look at uh, fucking name is escaping me right now because I'm looking at linebackers and he's not here. Will McDonald. You look at Will McDonald as like maybe he's not going to quite take the step you need him to, but it's Crosby,
Um,
Barmore, Williams, McDonald with Ben also thrown in there. Like that's a great front.
yeah, no, that's a great defensive line. I mean, Will McDonald played really good for the Jets this season. I don't know what he is in Madden now, but I'm assuming probably like around 80. That's fine for an edge two next to
Yeah,
Crosby, and I'm sure maybe he steps up and secondaries, they got some dudes. I don't exactly remember their safety situation. Oh,
Cameron
they have Cameron
Curl is
Curl. All
had a
right.
good year. Yep, and then Ryan Neal I think was a little bit down this year, but it's safety two. Talk about it. You can spend
Never,
8 million
yeah.
and find your safety two. Corners with Stokes and Stevenson being a little weird in real life, that might not feel great. But I mean, Lenore and Emerson, I think are both good. Lenore, I know is good. He got a big deal.
Yeah,
Um,
Lenore. So Stokes is a free agent. I don't think they extend him.
yeah, he just hasn't
Um,
panned
they
out.
have, they have Emerson and Stevenson. They could always add more. Um, I think this is a good foundation. I mean, especially like yeah, like they need weapons and stuff like that. But Jaden Daniels was a hit. I mean, and they have two first round picks, and they have a lot of draft picks next year, or not next year, but 2026. So that's why I say mid because like they're I don't want to say they're close because the AFC is really tough, but it's not like they're like this dire situation. Like if they have another really good offseason, you could definitely see them in the playoffs is like kind of my point. So that's why I would say mid, but if
It's like
you
mid.
like maybe I'm being a little optimistic for them, or maybe I'm just,
I think their trajectory is very good. I'm just not sure if they've gotten out of rebuilding yet.
all
That's
right, we
kind of
can
where I
leave them
sat,
rebuilding then.
but we'll leave them in mid. Um, I mean, it feels
Yeah,
fair. Like the AFC is very like mid or better. Like, and honestly, it might be
yeah,
the case with a lot of the teams in general. But yeah, maybe we can move it around a little when we
yeah.
get it
All
figured
right. I
out.
mean, maybe I understand where you're coming from. Like maybe if you want, we can put them in rebuilding because that's kind of where they are right now. But they very quickly could jump. We could put them in rebuilding and then
I just
see
think
what happens.
as so like if I was talking about a team like because you're looking forward, but like it is kind of where they're at too. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward, they've got all the pieces to do it. But unlike the teams I have in mid, those teams have the pieces there to be at
Hmm.
least mid and can look forward at more. I think the pieces
Right.
the Raiders have now is definitely still rebuilding, but they've got two firsts. They've got probably some money to spend, and the holes can be filled in free agency in a way too for some of these.
Right.
So like I think that they will probably be sitting in mid by the start of next year, but they've got to execute and do it.
No, I agree with you. That's fine. I feel like charges are simple. I think they're elite. Like they
Yeah.
just had a rough playoff game, but in terms of like the roster setup, they're in a really great spot.
Wide receiver's weird though. That's my thing. Is wide receiver going to be bad enough to hold them completely back going forward? Mike Williams, he's not going to be an option next year like that. He's been carried a bit
Yeah,
and been better than he's been in real life. And Keenan, I'm not sure if he's a free agent here, like real life.
he is. He
Okay,
is.
so that's a question. And also, like, I don't know if you trust Keenan to be your number one. Shakir is nice, but like,
They also have Hunter Henry, who's a free agent as well.
so
So
yeah, it's a lot.
that's
It's a lot more questions than you'd like to have for a team like that. But Herbert's always been good here, and I like some of the stuff they did on defense with like Stingley and all that. So with
yeah.
well,
I mean,
Cam
like
Jordan's gonna be gone too though, so you got edge questions.
yeah, and Joey
Opposite
Bosa
Bosa,
has
and
been.
Bosa is even. I think he had a better year, but he also had huge question marks around him coming into the year. So
He did.
they might
Yeah,
have more questions than I think can have answers for.
they definitely. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's definitely some stuff that needs to address. They also have extensions looming and limited caps, so we're gonna see what happens there. But good news is that they have a full amount of draft picks, and they can probably spot fill with some value guys. And definitely the weapons are probably the biggest question mark because let's say they cut Mike Williams and they don't bring back Keenan Allen, like their main receiver is Shakir, right?
Hmm.
And they don't have a tight end. Actually, sorry, they have Kate Stover, who's like a tight end two at best, and Cameron Latu, who's also probably like a tight end three at best. So, um,
I think they might have to
yeah,
do playoffs just because, like, I think you've got just a lot of questions. And the interior is going to be a question too. Like Jordan Davis just hasn't panned out. Um,
yeah,
not
I guess. All right, I
not
don't
to the
want to say
extent you
yeah. I
think
guess
he's not a.
mid.
He's feels like a
He's fine.
rotational run stuffer rather than
That's
a
really what he is. Yeah,
yeah
yeah.
a first down or first round sort of
He's
defensive
like a two
tackle
down
anchor.
as a tackle. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
that's fine.
tough. And he's three down for them, and he's been all right. Obviously, he had a sort of legendary run to get him to the Super Bowl,
Mhm. Yeah,
but he hasn't lived up to that hype this year, and it's only going to get further from that going forward.
yeah, I agree. And they're also gonna have to extend Rashawn Slater. Yeah, they got some
Slater
questions. I think their floor is
And
definitely
Lucas's
playoffs.
injury questions, like he just might not have the knees to make it any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So he began right tackle becomes a big question where we thought it wouldn't be. Um, I think they're just it feels like the Jets to an extent, where it's just like you don't think that you should have questions, but then you start to look at like the long term of it, and it's just like things are piling up on them. Um,
Right,
but
right. They can have a situation where like Cameron Jordan retires, something happens to Joey Bosa, and stuff like that where things can kind of fall apart quickly. I agree with that. So I think playoffs though is a good floor. You know, good spot for them. And
we head to the
Dallas.
NFC. Dallas is rebuilding
Well, I mean, I would put mid. Like
mid.
just
Uh,
because like my point of view is they have some elite players still,
mm-hmm.
and them if they chose like not to pay Dak Prescott and was like, all right, we're gonna kind of reset here, we're gonna look to rebuild. But they chose to pay him. They have some draft picks. They still have CeeDee Lamb. They have Pat Surtain. And actually, is DeMarcus Lawrence a free agent? I'm not
D-Law's
sure.
probably a free agent at this point. I can't imagine he's got another year.
Yeah, like they're definitely in between. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I feel like Dak and not Diggs, Lamb could carry him far. Like I mean, Jacoby Myers was a good signing for them. Like he's been playing well, and they have some pieces in place. But I think that they're just kind of riding off of like that base Dallas roster, and Pat Surtain was a great pick for them, and I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know. If anything, it's like a retooling, which I kind of put that in like mid category, right? And plus the NFC is kind of weak in comparison. But if you want to put a rebuild, if you're a little bit more bearish on them, that's fine. I
I
won't
feel like we'll
contest
do
that.
rebuilding just to kind of be that retooling because they're just not close to the playoffs. Like they were technically this year, but if you're looking at
Hmm.
trajectory, they're definitely flatlining on the trajectory here. Instead of there's gonna be these teams in the NFC below them that are expected to be much more arrow pointed up. You look at the
Hmm.
Rams who are never gonna have a worse roster than this year and still make the playoffs. Like
Right.
and Carolina obviously should have been better than that this year. You look at the Lions, you don't expect to underperform to the extent they did, which is the only reason they had a chance at the playoffs. The Seahawks, same thing. So like you start to look at the other teams that should jump them. I think they need to make something to be in the hunt of the playoffs going forward.
You want to hear something crazy? I was taking a look. I think I just found like our highest cap hit of 2025 right now as it stands. Dak's cap hit in 2025 is 81 million.
Ugh, gross. That is disgusting. Why would you say
They'll
that?
restructure, but that signing bonus is a lot higher than I thought it would be.
It's the end of that last deal, man. It's
Yeah, it's an $81 million cap hit with
yikes,
a $30 million signing bonus.
yikes, dude.
Yeah, so it's not like this, like, oh, here's a $50 million roster bonus that we could restructure. Like, no, it's that salary plus all that signing bonus at this point. So they definitely got some work to do, but yeah, they should be rebuilding, I think. Long-term prospect, especially since a lot of NFC teams, like you said, are, starting to be on the rise, I guess we'll put it that way. And yeah, I think they should be looked to be rebuilding. So I think that's fair.
The Giants, definitely playoffs, but is it better?
Well,
I think it's
I
playoffs
appreciate that.
because, like, the thing is, like, the offense put it together down the stretch,
They
like
did.
in a real way, and that was always the thing, is the Giants didn't have an offense, and it was the meme, and so like you start to piece it together. You still got Hendrickson under contract for next year. You still got Dexter Lawrence. You've got ACFL legend Kayvon Thibodeau on the defense. Like,
Yeah,
the corners are a little bit weird, but everyone's got weird corners this year because every corner is a free agent. It seems like so because every corner is a free agent. Hey, come play in New York, right? Um, I think
yeah,
that you can figure it out and be looking like a really elite team coming forward, and that team to compete with the Eagles going forward, who are probably going to have some cap questions as we get into them.
they
So
do.
we could have a change in the
Um,
guard in the NFC again, 1 year after having another changing of the guard. um,
yeah, I mean, I appreciate you putting us in playoff tier. There's, it's kind of funny. Like when I first joined, I basically like rebuilt the defense, and now kind of where we're at, it's like some of the guys that we brought in at the time, like a Wuzier, it's like kind of reaching the end of their deals type of thing. And what do we do next? But yeah, I mean, people kind of criticize me for not, blowing all our assets to try to like win now, especially this off season or not off season, like this trade deadline where I was like really trying to like buy, because I thought we had a chance to compete. But we were at a point where we just like we had like this string of really bad losses and everything like that, where I was like, oh crap, like I don't want to spend all our stuff and miss the playoffs. That'd be terrible. But things kind of worked out in our favor in that regard. So we're healthy cap wise. Like we're actually like we haven't even done a single restructure since I got here.
which I
And
do think is silly, but whatever.
well, I mean, it's not like I'm not like trying to do that type of thing. It's just at the same like we haven't needed to.
Playing scared, I get it.
Hey, I've tried. I want to put it out there. I've done what I can, and but yeah, I mean, I definitely think future
You could
looking
you
for the
could have paid
future. I
Gabe
think we're a
Davis
good
so
shot.
much money.
Yeah, well, see, did I chose not to, and I've had good instincts in free agency. Like I've had good instincts so far. Knock on wood, but
Yeah, your instinct has been just don't.
that's not true.
No, but
I've been
like most of the guys who get paid a lot, it's like nah. I don't know about that. Knox is a little. What's his deal? Is he just like been upstaged by Kincaid? He went down a bunch in Madden. That's why I was curious.
This crazy thing. I've watched Bills games and like Knox is involved. He's making catches. Like he's probably not the guy. Like it's just kind of like this two-man show. Like Kincaid's I think acts as like a big slot a lot of the time. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain like why he's been dropping. He hasn't really been that bad based on what I could see, but I haven't really paid that much attention to it. But at the time, I thought about it when I signed him and alongside Pat Pollard, it was like, okay, we have Stroud, like, we want to like make sure we invest in the offense here to like let him succeed. So we spent a little bit more, on, paying A tier money to like B tier guys, you know what I mean? And so hopefully Knox turns it around. But yeah, I mean, like is he a little overpaid? Sure, but we're not we're not hamstrung by it. And the offensive line on paper is really good. Think about it.
Yeah,
And
100%.
weapons, like yeah, they could be better. And defense, yeah, there's some questions, but overall, I think it's maybe I probably would have put like mid, just like things could turn around, like type of thing. Maybe I'm a little more bearish than I should be, but playoffs I think maybe is also fair. Maybe others would agree. So if you want that, that's fine with me. I mean, we did win a playoff game, so I guess I should give a little credit, right?
Yeah, you gotta
So
give a little credit. I just think that you guys are just too decently well set up across the board to not be playoffs in, especially the NFC. I think helps. I think if we were talking AFC, it might be a little easier to put you in mid. But with Stroud, like he's gonna be same guy coming in next year. Waddle, flexibility at least as far as you haven't really shot your shot. Um, I think sitting
Yeah.
at a baseline, you're too good to not be a playoff team. Um,
All
which is
right.
a lot of how
That
I
sounds
felt
good to
coming
me.
into the year. I think I project you guys to win 9 and get the playoffs. So I just think you're too good to not be a playoff team in the NFC.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Philly. Now, here's the thing about Philly. I didn't mean to drop them there. Do we have a huge contract issue coming up? Because they paid Parsons just an absolute ass ton of money because they had to, and they probably paid AJ Brown, and they got Devonta Smith, I think, under contract. Not Devonta Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown under contract. Do they have any money left over to keep anybody else on the roster?
Um, they do, but it's not amazing. Like AJ Brown and Amon Ra, they're paid. That's fine. Jalen Hurts, they can restructure for a bit, and same thing with Parsons. Like Parsons given like this like $45 million roster bonus that they're going to restructure. Like right now, like it's I'm taking a look. They have 21 players under contract in 2025. Assuming they don't bring back any free agent or whatever, right? Then they restructure these guys. Let's say just like estimate. Let's say they get up to like 40 million in cap. That's still that's not going to last them too long. Like they're going to have to be frugal, I think. And I don't know their pick situation. I'll have to look. They don't have a lot of picks
They
this
don't.
year.
They're gonna have to replace whatever they need in free agency, and I think it's just probably one last year. Especially with having to pay 10 million to try to get it on this year, their window
Yeah,
is gonna probably slam shut on them.
they do
You
have.
have to do it with Carr. You gotta try. You don't get an opportunity to have this good of a team very often, but
Yeah, I mean them picking up Carr, was a good move. At least in like they're the one seed. They might as well give it a chance. But yeah, they're going to take on like what do you call it? Oh no, sorry, that's stuck with the Raiders. Never mind. But they have C.J. Mosley as a free agent. Darius Slay is a free agent. Anyone else that really stands out? Like Jamal Adams, Joel Bitonio, um, OBJ, Taylor Moden. Yeah, they have a lot of guys who are going to hit free agency who I don't think they're going to replace him. They can, and or I'm not saying that they can't, but like, would it be smart to? Probably not. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like similar to the Bengals, where they have some really good players, elite players, but limited resources, and especially if they get hit with like an injury and stuff like that. I think the Eagles were lucky that they went on such a win streak, and then when Hurts got injured, like they were able to just kind of be insulated from that. But like, what happens if the Eagles got injured like that? Like, would they be able to survive that? Probably not. I guess any team you can say if their quarterback injured, right? I get it, but I just feel like there's like no depth. You know what I mean?
yeah, I definitely agree. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress forward. But for now, we're gonna leave them in elite. And
Yeah.
probably my only NFC team to be an elite. Yeah, it's definitely the only NFC team I have an elite looking forward. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's probably a good cap to our elite tier. Is just 4 teams anyway. Don't have too
Mm-hmm.
many. Washington is not very good.
That's crazy. Like Washington actually has some like
Oh,
good
they're
pieces they can
rebuilding.
work.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. I forgot
I
about the
would put
corners. I always
rebuilding.
forget about the corners, dude. The corners are so good. It just didn't work out this year. And Saquon, eh.
Hmm.
Offensive
I
line
mean,
has something.
weapons wise, they're a pretty good spot. I mean, Saquon, good. They have like you ready for this?
McBride,
What overall do you think Trey McBride is?
91.
That's crazy.
He's been
Like,
so good, dude.
no, I know. I mean, like that's awesome for them. So like, I
Yeah.
mean, they have a tight end set up, and they have Terry McLaurin. Like, so
They need
that's
to
a
build
good.
out depth. It's every year with this team. They sign like 40 guys. And it's just like it's complete nobodies after that. Like their team doesn't
Yeah,
have like if one wide receiver gets hurt, you're playing literally a random 63 overall guy. And like Trey
yeah,
Palmer was awesome for them in that role this year.
yeah. I know. So
So,
like,
but like it doesn't like you can't fall that far. And so this has got to be the year they invest in like actually building out a real roster.
right.
But then it's just what do you do at quarterback?
That's the biggest question. Like, what do they do? I think they're the team that drafts Cam Ward. It seems like a guy that Trey would like.
Do they trade up for Cam Ward, or does somebody trade up with the Packers or with the
What pick is
Bucks?
Washington?
3.
3?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I don't know if this is a big trade up class like that. I mean, things could change. I could just
I just think it might be a
honestly, I could
cheap
just
trade up for somebody. I don't know who though.
maybe,
Do I think that with
maybe.
the
I don't.
Browns, do they want to swing on Cam Ward? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, who knows? Things can change. I think right now, assuming where things are at, I can see maybe just like, Trevor picking Travis Hunter and then, Abdul Carter going next. And people are just like, yeah, we're just going to take these blue chips and QBs will fall. But who knows? But yeah, I mean, looking at the roster, like they got Snead, Garrett Williams, like they got some players, but they definitely, like that defensive line is, ooh, I guess they have Deron Payne, but other than
Yeah.
that, that's kind of rough. And offensive line, like definitely the trenches need to be worked at. They have uh they have Paris Johnson who's pretty good.
Yeah, Paris
And
Johnson was their top pick.
oh wait, Connor Williams retired.
Connor Williams retired in season. We just never took him off, and they never won a game, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I just realized that. Like, okay, like they lost him and that's really it on the line.
Yeah,
Like they have
it's
Jack Conklin, I guess, but like he may what if he retires? You know what I mean? He probably won't, but like what if he does? And
yeah, he's gonna be on the doorstep of it for sure.
yeah,
Just because he's
like
coming off the major injury too, so it's like, is he gonna
hmm
rehab another one all the way and try to fight
yeah.
back? Probably. These guys are competitive, but like,
Uh, you know, like I think looking at it, I personally I feel like I would put them down in the acorns here. If we're putting Vic and
yeah,
rebuilding, I don't know. I feel like there's more holes and not
I
enough
don't
here.
necessarily think this is like that tight of a group, right? I think of Acorn Tier as like they just have almost nothing going for them.
All right, that's fine. That's fair. Okay,
Like that's what I mean. Like
rebuilding's
because
fine.
it's like I
Yeah.
didn't order this, right? So like Vic is definitely like cusp of mid rebuilding versus like Washington is like, are you guys gonna go to Acorn Tier? But like there's still I think a wide enough gap in these tiers that I think they can be in the same one, unquote.
hmm
It's also,
Yeah,
I
all
mean,
right,
it's
that's
NFC
fine.
versus AFC difference too, right? It feels a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
easier to get up to rebuilding. You know, you feel like you're a couple pieces away from being mid in the NFC versus the AFC teams there.
hmm I'm curious to hear what you put the Bears at.
The Bears, they're mid. I,
Okay.
I like a lot of the things they have, like a lot of the pieces around them, and I like them getting Stafford. It didn't really work great, but the thing that made them and has made them who they are is the defense. But
hmm
are they going to be able to be the best defense in the league with Zadarius Smith not giving them 15 sacks?
No,
That's the thing.
they.
And without that, I don't think they can do it. Because Highsmith put up 20 something, but I think he goes down next year too. I don't think he does that for them. I don't think Zadarius will, if he's even back, I'm guessing he's a free agent. He doesn't feel like a guy who'd be on a multi 2 year
He is.
deal.
He
Even if
is
they
a
bring him
free agent.
back, like he's probably going to get cut in half to be nice. I like Kalijah Kancey. He can maybe step up and eat some of that production up. And Roquan's obviously a dog.
hmm
But like they got 3 pick sixes from Kyrie Elam this year, and 4 overall interceptions and like 10 deflections.
That's
Like
really lucky. Yeah.
they're not gonna get that sort of production out of CP2 again. So it's just um they got a worry
Yeah.
question now at safety. So it's just like I just don't think I feel as good about them. And their interior offensive line I think is very old if I'm remembering correctly, or it's James Daniels who's probably also expiring like he is real life. Um, so I
Yeah.
just think
No,
they're
I.
sitting in mid right now.
Yeah, I think mid is fair. I mean, I was probably one of the Bears' biggest critics early on, like in terms of how the roster was set up. I thought they won games like through meme power. Like, I'll take the medicine on that front type of thing, especially when like Levis went on his run. But the Bears, they have like a good foundation on, they have especially on defense. But yeah, there's definitely some question marks with limited capital, and they have some good weapons like Brandon Ayuk, Tank Dell, and uh, Kincaid and stuff like that, and
Which
running back.
unfortunately, Tank Dell, like he's going to be a major question mark going forward.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think he played. I don't think
he
he'll
doesn't play
play
next
next.
year, but he's playing here obviously. But it's just like as you start
Yeah.
talking about then contract stuff, like what's going to be his future in the NFL as we go
hmm
forward too. So um, obviously still
Yeah, I think
Ayuk, so it's not like nothing, but it's gonna hurt a lot.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think mid is fair for them. I think the North is competitive, where it'll be hard for them to win the division. And then if they're a wild card team, that's still kind of, I don't want to say it's tough as the AFC, but based on their questions, I don't want to say they overperformed, right? But they definitely had some things go their way. I feel like that they won games that they probably should have lost. And our playoff game was close. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like I was much better than them, but I feel like there was a few games this year that, like as you said, they got like some weird pick sixes with their cornerback 2 or 3, right? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. And did they like not have a running back for a while, or am I thinking of
Well,
something else
so
now?
Tank Bigsby is probably gonna be their guy going forward. But Davion Pierce got hurt a lot this year,
Yeah, and
and struggled in real life too. So
I was gonna say like Pierce didn't play for a long time. Like he was like just a special teamer, if anything, and he was just vastly overrated here and stuff like that. Where how long can you rely on that, right?
hmm
So it's yeah. So I think they're fine. Like it's definitely kind of like the epitome of mid. I feel like they got some stuff, but there's definitely some questions. So I agree. Detroit,
yeah, Detroit, I can't shake this year, and so
I
I
put
think they
mid.
have to be mid. Yeah, their
I
offensive
put
line
mid.
is so good, but Lane Johnson's probably expiring, right? I think he was a 1 year guy,
Um, Lane
and
Johnson is
Tyreek
not.
Hill is probably out. Okay, so Lane
No,
Johnson's not.
so he's not. But Sam Cosmi is a free agent.
Oh, that's a big one. Okay, so Sam Cosmi out because they probably can't pay him. Trent
They're
Williams, they
not.
gave a 2 year deal, I believe, so he should be there.
They do.
But so
They
the
have
tackles
Doug
still be
too.
great. The running backs will still be very good. I'm guessing it might just be Kenneth Walker because I'm sure they're going to try to cut bait on Kamara
Yeah,
because
Kamara is crazy
they
tackling.
wanted him
Yeah.
out last year if they could do it because they just can't expend this much on the running back. It just didn't work out.
hmm
But then receiver, I mean Tyreek Hill wants out of Miami in real life. Like, is he going to stay here? I don't know. Do they? I mean, they need something else anyway. Um,
They do. Yeah. I mean, they have
so
Keon Coleman, who's fine. Jahan Dotson is eh. Let's put hopes and prayers there, but probably not super working out. Like cornerback is a travesty. I mean, I don't want to say, or maybe not travesty, but like they have Kool-Aid McKinstry, but they still have J.C. Jackson. Oh wow, I didn't even realize that.
yeah,
Yeah,
J.C. Jackson, but depending on how good that carryover is going to be again this year. But this and JOK retired too. I think I saw.
yeah,
So
that's a big
that's a
blow.
big, huge blow. Jack Campbell played awesome, so that's something.
Yeah.
But like their pass rush is going to be good. John Allen, Lee McNeil. We talked about in one of the Lee McNeil and Milton Williams. I believe are both going to be free agents.
They are. Yeah, they are.
So they maybe pay one of those guys. We talked about them getting a guy in the draft as well. Because sitting in the
hmm
middle, that's a good spot for like a Kenneth Grant potentially.
Yeah,
Uh,
Kenneth Grant fit in well here. Yeah.
just to kind of complete this defensive line, complete the strength of your team. But I mean, if you get injury to Hutchinson like this year, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And
Honestly, I
that's
think maybe Edge is a closer need. Well, I guess they have
no,
Chris
that's Jalen
Boswell.
Phillips.
Well, yeah.
He's gonna still be
No,
well
they don't.
upgraded for the future.
So
Is
Jalen Phillips is a free agent.
he is? Oh my God!
hmm
This whole are they even rebuilding? No, they're not. But like God, this it just all is coming to an head, and like yeah, it's gonna
hmm
take a lot of work to get this thing right.
And their secondary, like, do they have a safety?
I mean, they have a bunch of guys right now that are pretty well
Jimmy
rated.
Brown and Marcus Martin. Yeah.
Dark Forest, I think, had a bad year. He's probably out. Marcus Epps, Richie Grant,
All,
Jertavius Martin, all guys above
all free
75
agents.
here.
Yeah.
All free agents. Oh my God.
Well,
How
not Martin and Brown, but like the top guys are free agents. Yeah.
how can so many guys on one team be free agents? I don't understand. This is brutal.
This was like their push year, I guess. Like, I mean, I think maybe they try to extend McNeil, right? Maybe they try to move Jonathan Allen for some capital to help retool a little bit. And plus, I know knowing Red Sox, he'll try to keep like real life lines and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe that's why he'll keep
I
McNeil and
like keeping McNeil as the number one inside. I like that. So if they can
yeah,
get
and they
something
have
for
Aiden
Allen
Hutchinson.
and move on from him, and it's still the same thing with McNeil. You need to find a guy to go with him. But I like that better, even though Allen's a better player in the short term. Um, I like
I mean, even if
Lee
you think
McNeil.
long, but even if you think long term, like if you think beyond next year, what are they going to do with tackle? Like Lane Johnson and
hmm
Trent Williams are both going to be free
And
agents
does Lane
at that point.
retire? Like he's talked
I don't
about
know,
it every
maybe.
year.
Yeah, like what if he retires? What do they do there? You know what I mean? And
Like Trent's 36, he could retire at any point too. Like,
yeah, so like I feel like they're on the border of like rebuilding tier,
and
but
Ragnow's young, but he's had so many devastating injuries. Does he even
he talks about
retire? Like,
retiring due to his injuries. Yeah.
yeah, there's like literally like every important piece on their team is either expiring or a huge question mark, either by
Hmm.
retirement or Tyreek Hill turning into Antonio Brown. Like, this could
If,
get ugly quick. And so
if
like I think
I
when it
was,
gets the most ugly, it's still a mid team, but
yeah,
they got
well,
so
yeah,
many questions, man. It feels so bad. This team went from that couldn't do much wrong, like everything kind of falling into place, to basically a full disaster season.
yeah, I feel bad for them. It definitely did not go out the way that they wanted.
They were like the second
And
best overall team in the sim,
wow, really,
and they
really,
finished 8-9.
Hmm. I didn't know that. Wow.
The offensive line was like a 90 flat average.
Yeah, their offensive line's crazy. It's just, beyond like they needed to make it now. Now it's like some big questions. If I was them, I would do what I can to keep Cosme and Ali McNeil and
Hmm.
try to keep some young core going because like if let's say they let him go and then you try to patch fill this year, especially because they have like no money, I
Yeah,
think. And yeah, it's not looking. I mean, they can free up something. Like, don't get me wrong, they can do some stuff, but
I think they'll
it's
end
gonna be.
up better than it feels like they're going to. But like, yes, you got to keep Cosme, you got to keep McNeil. The rest of it, you got to let go. And you got to find somebody to take Jonathan Allen, I think, because you just need to use that money elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, JOK retiring will help them out. Honestly, if I was them, I would find someone like the Saints or something like that to take JC Jackson off their hands. Like, just get rid of him, do what it takes,
I just don't
something
think they
like
can
that.
afford the picks either.
Yeah, you're right. They can't. Well, let's say, this is a sample. Like, let's say hypothetically, they go to the Saints or whoever has like a crap load of cap, be like, hey, we'll give you a third and JC Jackson for like a young rookie contract guy and like a fifth, right? That's not the end of the world because then they get a lot of money back. And then let's say they move Jonathan Allen for someone and maybe they trade down the draft. So like they can get creative and stuff like that. But yeah, JC Jackson's $25 million cap hit is hurting them a lot. And
It's
especially for where
probably guaranteed
it's,
to go away too. Yeah, so
yeah, so it's definitely rough. The outlook beyond this is definitely looking tough. But yeah, I think mid is fair for them. Yeah.
it sucks, but
Yeah. Now we're going to Green Bay. Um, that roster was held together by like duct tape and prayers type of thing. You know what I mean? And
yeah, and I think you have more questions about Love. Like it started as a joke to an extent. I didn't think he was as good as Acorn thought he was early
hmm
on, but I thought he was a good quarterback. But I don't know, man. This like anytime they ask him to just play regular quarterback, it does look pretty ugly.
did you know that he had the most games this year with multiple interceptions out of anybody in the league?
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I read that somewhere. I think
That's
today. Like
I'd have put money on him being that.
he had like 7 or 8 games with multiple picks this
He's a
year.
gunslinger, and I think he can dial it in. The weaponry was weird this year. Like I think they are good on offense, and like you look at like Willis in that offense, and it looks unstoppable. And it's funny to say, because like
Yeah.
Willis was by completion percentage above expected and EPA, like that charts you see, he was the best of anybody with
Right.
any volume. The best by like a gap too in that offense. So
Mhm.
then you talk about like, do you think Love like didn't have enough help? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
So it's like
It's
he gets the most easy button plays in the entire league, and when he doesn't get the easy button plays, he is one of the worst in that situation.
hmm
So it's really tough. But like I think he's a better quarterback than he's played in those situations, but like it doesn't feel great there, and the rest of the roster is a complete wasteland. So like you got a couple guys, but like it's a wasteland. It's you find a couple oases here, but then it's otherwise feels pretty bad. Especially with the
this
down year
roster.
from Gary, that really hurts.
Yeah, Gary and Jair, like him not playing with his
Jair had a bit
team.
of a bounce back year. I think he was worse last year than this. I would say.
Pretty sure because I
I
thought
feel
Jair
like
hadn't
his
played
grading
clean.
bounced back. He was looking pretty rough grading wise 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I think he bounced back
Yeah.
to an extent. I don't think he feels like great about Jair. Like at least if talking to himself in the mirror, like how do I feel about Jair? Oh, truth mirror here. But yeah, I just think it doesn't feel good all around.
It's there's a lot. There's a lot of questions. He's got no defensive tackles. He's got
He's got a little bit of money to
no.
do it with this year, but it's gonna be a bottom team setting it up for the
Oh yeah,
future still.
he's got a lot of draft picks. He can bring in. It's going to be like Chiefs 2.0 and stuff like that, or like the Cardinals, where they're going to have a lot of players on like rookie deals and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And but in terms of like a roster strength, definitely a bottom tier roster. But it can turn around quick. But yeah, the questions on Love and definitely it's not ideal. I mean, do you think they extend Dobbs? I don't
I
know.
don't think you
Like
can. He's really not played well.
Dobbs and Pierce, like I know he likes like
I think Pierce
probably
is a
wouldn't.
meme more than he actually likes him that much. Um,
Yeah, like they have, Elton Jenkins, good.
yeah, he's their
They
best
have,
player, right? Like outright.
yeah, like do they extend? So like, do they extend Zach Vaughn? I would, but they also
You
have
have
like,
to. He's your only player. Like, but then again, like Trevor Wallace didn't do anything in real life, but he was awesome here. Like,
yeah,
so you kind of got to
so
keep playing him, and then you got Landon Roberts, who I think they paid on a multi-year deal last year.
they
So
did,
you kind
yeah,
of
they
got
paid
two
him.
linebackers, and you can do 4-3 and go for three of them. But how much value is the third linebacker there? Not really any. So
Yeah, it's not
in
great.
a team that
So
you
they
don't
had,
have anything figured out, it's hard to figure out a position like linebackers to such an extent. So
hmm
that's why I think it's got to be just a tag and trade sort of situation if you can negotiate that out.
if they can, yeah, if they can get like a third round pick or something like that for
Because you
him,
don't want to
sure.
just try to get the comp pick because you need to add guys every year. So you can't wait out your free agency entirely and miss the boat on everybody. So that's tough because you'd really like to get something for him. So you got to figure out a team that's willing to pay him something, and it's got to be negotiated in advance all the way
hmm
because you can't put the tag on him and then let him sign that contract after the tag because you use the tag as the leverage against that team. And I don't think a team's going to pay you a third plus paying him 15, 16, 17 million.
Yeah,
But we'll see. I mean, we've seen some guys get bigger contracts than I thought, especially at linebacker with bigger trade compensations. So maybe it does come down to that. And it all works out for everybody and we're all happy.
yeah, we'll have to see. I'm not really sure which way he goes. I mean, at least if anything, in terms of building blocks, he's got some young receivers. He's got some guys on the interior that you're happy about, and Jordan Love, if you believe in him. I mean, like, I probably put Love like a, kind of around Tua type of thing. I don't think Love is elite type of thing, but you
Yeah.
can surely win here with Love. I'm assuming, so he just needs to build around him. But um, yeah, that team needs work. So definitely Acorns here.
Yep. The namesake here.
hmm
Vikings playoff tier, probably.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think they had some rough luck,
Yeah.
but
100% on the
I
playoff game.
they had some rough luck. They're struggling in terms of draft picks next season, but in terms of like overall, I think this is, if anything, I would put them closer to elite. But the questions is like, do they extend Purdy
Hmm.
and stuff like that? What do they do and what happens? Like, I mean, they have elite weapons across the board. I mean, running back is a question mark, but they can find some and. Offensive line is a little like they have guys you're happy with, but they can definitely improve. Defensive line, they got some players, but I don't know. Definitely a playoff team for sure. Like they're probably one of the best teams in the NFC in my opinion. Are they truly elite? Mm, I would say you can argue it, but definitely playoff team is the floor. I would think they got young guys. They got Diggs. They have Will Anderson Jr. Chop Robinson had a great rookie season for the time that he played, and they have guys across the board. Like they have some value guys on the defensive line. They have Patrick Queen. I think the offense, honestly, just maybe like the offensive line and um, like running back and stuff like that is probably like their biggest need and questions beyond that, like linebacker two and everything. But they can fill that out. So definitely a playoff team though. I think at least is like their floor.
Yeah,
So
I think it just was unfortunate how it ended, but you keep Purdy in there. The receivers are so good. The tackles are pretty good. You feel good about that. So just add a couple interior guys, fill things out. Um,
yeah, the game
so
just kind of snowballed like
yeah,
how it did when I versed them week one.
yep.
Like two like it's just one of those games where just things went out. It was close until all of a sudden it just snowballed out of control. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much if I was them though.
Yeah, I mean, you
I
got
mean,
Devonte Wyatt entering his last year, and then Osa, who they extended, and Gervon Dexter interior. That's pretty solid, right? You,
yeah,
you
interior
go
it's
Will
hard.
Anderson and Chop on the edge, like, yeah,
They got
I
guys.
think you can make that defensive line and feel good about it. I don't know if Tavai's under contract, but it's Tavai and Patrick Queen at linebacker, so you're building out like a 3-4 front. That's your front seven completely filled. Depth, I
Tavai's a
think,
free
needs
agent.
Tavai's a free agent. Okay, so yeah, linebacker two then, like you said. But then
Yeah.
yeah, it's just depth after that that you got to work on. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. So like, they can improve in some areas, but like they're not hurting. Just bring in some depth, maybe they get some lucky value deals and they have a second rounder still and maybe they can trade someone, and kind of retool a little bit. But yeah, I don't think it's that bad of a situation and cap wise they're not horrendously bad. So I
yeah.
definitely see them being a playoff team for a while.
I'm guessing Daryl Baker is under contract for next year as a second year man
Yes.
right now, or third year. So at least they have three corners locked up that can be starters. I think you might want to
Mhm.
upgrade over Baker and make him fourth, but if it doesn't happen, I don't think you're
I
worried.
think they opt to trade Ward. I know like
Hmm.
so Ward is on the final year of his deal. Maybe if they get a good offer from someone, they can move Ward and make Diggs the one and kind of use that to kind of like parlay into improving elsewhere.
And if
But,
they get a
also they
decent
can
enough
keep them
pick, this
both.
corner class is pretty good. I think you can feel
Exactly.
okay
So,
about finding if Baker ends up playing the role of your number two. I think you can feel good about finding your three, with their day two pick they likely get from Ward.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even then they have Jordan Lewis, for a value deal, they can roll him out in the slot for another year and kind of like retool after that. So, not too many long-term questions, I think, and I don't know. I'm bullish on this roster. I think they're fine. So definitely a playoff tier team for sure.
Yeah, and especially because like we're down to the end. We're down to our last two, and we've put three teams as playoff teams now. It's just we haven't quite filled out this playoff tier because just these teams have a lot more questions sitting here.
Hmm.
Speaking of
Exactly.
questions, the Atlanta
Yeah.
Falcons, more of a retool, I think. But yeah, we're filled with questions all up and down this roster. They are one off season away from being an acorn team or back to
Yeah, they
mid
are.
because everybody's expiring. Everybody who's been important to this team for the last 3 years, 4 years is expiring,
Yeah.
except for
They have a lot of
McDuffie,
and
I guess, right? Like McDuffie and now recently
mhm.
Nakua. Like they've hit
Mhm.
they've this team has hit so big, but just like they just didn't put it together in a good enough way, and now they've got to answer all these questions.
Yeah, and questions about Richardson as well.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so I would put rebuilding just I mean for the sake of that as well. Like I mean even like let's assume they keep their core, right? Do you think that brings them up to a playoff team if they keep all their guys?
I think they should have been this year. They had some rough injuries in the middle that hurt them.
Mhm.
Richardson's going to take a step back, but I think the interceptions were a little noisy. So I think he can cut those in half, and they're a step ahead. They need to find a better running back than they had this year. That was the biggest
Yeah.
difference, and I think you can find a running back regardless how much money you have. So I think if they can run everything back, they're a playoff team.
Okay. I
But
would I would put mid as like
I don't think it's possible they can keep everything. That's the other thing. I don't think there's any scenario in which they keep Rousseau, Terrell, and Grady Jarrett. I
they're
don't.
probably going to be like the Bears like last season where like they just
If they fork over massive
sleep at
cash, then like God, that'd be worse than. I think they have to
they
take
have
the
a,
short term hit to try to grow.
yeah, so what they were asleep at the wheel, right? So if
Yeah.
they were proactive and extended their guys, like they'd be fine. But I think now, fortunately, like, the players have leverage, right? They only have one tag, but two very good guys available to hit free agency. So now they're going to have to pay a premium to keep them if they want, but they have the money to do so. So we're just gonna have to see how they handle. Like maybe the Falcons go like, hey, we got McDuffie, we'll keep him and Renardo Green, and we'll let AJ Terrell walk. Who knows? Like maybe we'll tag and trade him. I don't agree with that, but you never know. Like right, like what if they decide to do that? And um, yeah. So let's maybe under the assumption that they keep most of their guys. They still have a lot of good players. I would put them in mid. Just the biggest questions is about like Richardson and they have draft picks, like they're fine there, and they're not hurting for money too much. So I don't know. I think that I could see them turning around. I guess like if we're assuming everybody leaves, then what happens? And I don't think I see everybody going. I don't think we'll let that happen. So
Yeah, I would say
we'll see
two.
what
I
happens.
was just thinking two of the three would go, but
Mm,
not
well, I mean, if
sure.
you think about it, let's say they focus really hard on bringing back Terrell, right? And then they tag
Russo.
Rousseau. So right there, they're bringing back two.
Yeah.
Like I'm under the assumption that they sign one and potentially tag the other, and assuming that the player plays on the tag, they're bringing back two. And
You've got your Sewell
um,
contract to deal with too. There's other things going on
right,
around
right.
them that make it tough.
That's kind of why I put them in mid tier, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, they got the questions. That they have really good players. Like I feel like it's a good problem. They have really good players. Like you just got to pay them and got to hope they do it. And as long as they just keep doing what they're doing, and they could do it, I guess. You know what I mean? Like if you want to put them in rebuilding, I won't contest it. I think mid is probably a fairer one, where like. If things go the right way, they could be easily a playoff team. But if things go the wrong way, they could tumble down and be like a rebuilding team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the. I think mid is fair. So, yeah,
Carolina next. I think their playoffs. Young's going to take a step back here next year, even with the carryover, just because there's no way to get to the level he's at now. Like, even with him, I think he looks great for being the guy long term now. He finished real well, so I think you feel good about him long term. The roster, you've got guys aging to an extent. I love bringing in Asante Samuel to go with J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn's probably expiring, or is he fifth year?
so Horn and Samuel are both on like the fifth year option.
Okay,
So
so
they're both like $17 million each. So they both need, or at least one of them needs to be extended, type of thing.
it's definitely J.C. Horn. He had a great year, if I'm remembering
Yeah,
right.
he did. He
So,
actually was healthy. Good for
so
him.
yeah, it was the thing. He was always great. It's just he'd be great on like 250 snaps,
Right.
and then
He
he'd
would
be
always have
recovering
injury
from injury
problems.
on another 200. So it's like he can't really hold his first half back. He's getting back up to speed. You can't hold that against him. And then it
Hmm.
was so actually it's somewhat unfortunate for them because I think if I were sitting in their shoes and he got hurt for another year, I'd feel pretty good about paying him some money. But it'd be a lot less money if he didn't have a fully healthy year where he was awesome the whole time.
On value, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little unfortunate to an extent because they're not paying off this in ratings yet. So it's like you just couldn't have waited like 6 months to prove it. But
Honestly, is this going to be a little bit of a hot take for me? I would put him in mid,
I don't know if it's a
and
hot take. It's just like they won
not
9 games this year.
not couldn't so not because of like Bryce Young or anything like that. Like, so from my point of view, like I guess maybe it's just me being like a pessimist and stuff like that. Like nothing's guaranteed in the NFL. Like Bryce Young looked great, and I'm happy for him. But like, what happens if the season goes poor to like next season, right? What happens there? But looking at their roster, like there's a lot of guys who are like expiring that and they don't have any draft picks for these next 2 years. Well, all right, sorry, they have some draft picks, but they're mostly day three draft picks and stuff like that. Let's assume they extend Horn. Do they also extend Samuel? And then they have like guys like Jeff Okuda, who's bad, Darius Rush, who I think was cut by the Colts in real life, so like that's kind of nothing. Harold Landry hitting free agency. Then they have Bryce Huff, who was very disappointing this year, who's making like $20 million. David Ojabo, another disappointing pick, like in real life. And then in the interior, they have Derek Brown. Then they have Devon Hamilton, who I guess is fine, more of a
Yeah,
defensive tackle three in my opinion.
yeah, he
But
had a bit of a down year. People had hopes
yeah,
for it,
like
but yeah.
they
So
have
your
Greenlaw.
case is that the offensive line kind of sucks, and the
It
defensive
does.
line
I
is
was not
pretty
even there yet. Yeah,
mid. So yeah, that's your case for mid, 100%. And like also, I
like
mean, Adams, how long is he gonna play? How well is he gonna play for as long as he's gonna play?
they
Um,
got 1 year left with Adams, so
yeah, even then, yeah. So, and then
so that
yeah,
was kind of my
uh,
point. Like I feel like this team played in a weak NFC South. And like obviously like Bryce Young has been really good in the sim here and stuff like that, but it's kind of like Bryce Young and his weapons carrying the rest of the team. Like it's not a horrendous roster, but I feel like there's a lot more question marks going forward where what happens if they just can't fill it correctly, and what happens if Bryce Young takes a step back in 2025? What happens then? I feel like I definitely think mid is a little bit more, especially on defense. I think they have a lot of question marks that need to address. So I don't want to put them in a lock for playoffs because didn't it come down for the wire for them to make the playoffs anyway?
it did. I just think
So
that was just them playing with their food. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, it's
maybe.
it's definitely a situation that like I can see the mid for sure. I think they're only really playoffs at all because of the NFC itself.
Right.
Is the only reason I thought they'd be there. But honestly, it's really hard to anticipate how Bryce Young's going to play in the sim next year
Right.
because he's going to go down to a rating that he hasn't been at since the first half of his rookie year.
Yeah, because I don't even know what Bryce is right now. I think they buffed him a little bit,
He's
but I
up to
think he's what, like
75. So I mean 75, he's going to go maybe he hits 85 again with the carryover stuff in pretty short order and that'd be good enough.
yeah,
But
and that's kind of like
he's going to lose X Factor, which is two ability slots at 85 lost. So
right.
he's going to be a significantly worse player by abilities,
Hmm.
at the very least, and ratings for sure. So like he's gonna take a
And,
hit to a level like I said he hasn't been at since he was a rookie.
yeah, and that's going to be at a point where like okay, let's say they have a good start and they have good weapons like in terms of receivers to go off of where that just kind of feels mid to me. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
it's like this not this overpowering elite team going forward. I mean, right now in the playoffs, they're really good. They're healthy. They have Joe Mixon. I just kind of forgot about. Like they have good players. It's just beyond that, like what happens. So I think I don't know if I put playoffs lock, but I think maybe like upper. If anything, if there was like an upper mid, but like question marks, I'd put them there. But
yeah.
that's what I would do. Uh, if I'm being a hater there, then sorry, but I don't know. That's just kind of a thought there. So Saints,
Saints are mid, I think.
yeah, I would put them in
They
mid.
finished way too well. They figured out the Kyler Murray thing. They got question marks kind of everywhere to an extent, but Jameer Gibbs is really awesome. They have not gotten anything from Jameer Gibbs here at any point.
Really?
He was at I'm gonna look it up right now. At one point in the season, he was in the low twos yards per carry.
Wow.
So like that's some on the offensive line for sure, but they just didn't
Yeah.
have this. They didn't have the juice version of him. He finished at 3.3 yards per carry, probably getting some of the boosts near the end. Two touchdowns on the year too. Um, so he's gonna have to be better than that. But like, he's such a good player in real life. They're gonna get something out of him, you'd think.
Hmm.
And then yeah, Jamar Chase. They haven't gotten much from Jamar Chase in the ACFL either, actually. But probably paying big money. Hopefully getting better out of him. Mooney had a nice year as number
Hmm.
two.
The Chiefs, I feel like have such an easy path to become a really, really good team, especially in that division. I hope that you know, if I was them, I would have kept Nico Collins and
Mm-hmm.
extended both him and Chase, especially because they're young and you use that. I mean, they have the assets, they have so many draft picks, so much cap. So it really just comes down to them. Like, do they want to go in and compete in this like questionable NFC South? I don't know. They have question marks, sure, but it's the sense of like they have young, unproven guys in most positions where they can upgrade them. Yeah, I mean it's I would definitely put mid. I mean like there's very quick they could become a really good team, or they can just nod and just kind of be where they're at. I don't know, but it's let's see what they do. But I feel like this would be the prime off season for the Saints to like really turn it up. Like guess how much cap they have next season?
Probably 120.
They have 170.
Oh, yikes!
Like, yeah,
You can't spend
170.
you
Like,
can't spend that much. That's the other thing though. You can't fucking spend that much. No
well, no, I
chance.
mean, like they really should have spent some this season. Like, to be honest with you, like them carrying over 85 is just kind of like it's just kind of dumb. Like, I'm just gonna say it. Like, that was just kind of dumb.
They missed some
But
opportunities. Like Andrew Van Ginkel would have been fun, but they have edges, right? So it's like they should have probably gone after the Leonard Williamses of the world interior,
yeah, I mean,
or
like
the
there's definitely
played
there's
paid one of
definitely
those
value.
guards a bunch of money. They need guards.
Yeah, they just need players. I mean, like, yeah, they have Kyler Murray. Fine. Like, he's on a value deal here. Like, they figured they'd just rather bring in him and than draft one. I get it.
Which
But
that's
yeah,
really
they
a
they
great
could turn
idea
around.
based off of how the quarterback market looks. Like
Yeah,
that's going to be a way better option than whatever they would have ended up with in the draft if they'd waited.
right. No, it was a good move. I give him credit for that. And the trade that they did for Nico was good. I mean, they turned a third into like a first and whatever else. So I get it. They're parlaying it. It just this Saint team is completely wiped clean of like everything that was bad. So like now, especially for where they're standing, like they have They have sorry, they have 3 second rounders and 3 first rounders alone right now.
Yeah.
Not even counting everything else. And they're going to have so much cap space where they can really take over that division, in my opinion. Just we'll have to see if they try to do it. You know what I mean?
They have to. I mean,
So
because like I said, Panthers got questions, Falcons have questions. The Saints don't have questions, but they haven't had answers. So they're mid.
that's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So yeah, we'll see what they happen. I'm sorry, we'll see what they do, but definitely I can see this team, really being like a premier NFC contender. So we'll see. Tampa, I put in Acorn tier, but
What do they need except for quarterback?
a lot.
Their defense is
Well,
fine,
okay.
right? Like they
So for
did get
defense,
Cooper on the
they have
edge,
Cooper. They got
and
no one else.
no one else. Defensive line. Let me look. I feel
Nope.
like they had
They
someone
have
solid.
so on the defensive line they have Zach Harrison, who's
Yeah,
I don't really know much
he's
about him, but they in terms of the defensive line, all they have under contract is Jaquelin Roy in
okay. So yeah,
2025.
they need a full reset. Yeah, that's true. There's nothing here. But
They
like,
need, yeah,
so I'm just thinking, like, if you think about like a team that has temples, right? The wide receivers are very good. Their offensive line
yes.
is well. I mean, Anton Harrison kind of sucks, but Tristan Wirfs,
They
Trey
got
Smith,
players. They have elite
like
players that
they
just
have
need to
elite
build around.
players. It's just like I don't think that if you and, you got Winfield and the corners, Dean and Davis are pretty good. Like I don't think if you didn't put a decent quarterback here, they wouldn't win 7 or 8 games.
They probably would. I mean, like just the way the sim is, and it's not a horrendous team, right? I'm sorry, maybe Acorn was a little harsh in that regard, but yeah, Evans and Godwin, and do they have a running back? Not
They
really.
don't. They need a running back too. But
Um,
again, running back's 12 million. Like I said,
Owen,
top running back in the class getting signed for 12. So it's like okay, running back, quarterback,
tight end, they don't have.
and
They actually only
and
have two receivers under
a pass
contract.
rusher, and then sign a bunch of minimum defensive linemen to fill it out. Like I don't think that's. I think that's all they need.
Yeah, yeah, they're kind of broke. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll stick with Acorn. I'm gonna stick with Acorn. You can leave them in rebuilding if you want.
I
They
just think
have plenty of picks.
they have too much like guys like Mike Evans and Godwin can kind of just carry an offense if you give them anything to work with. I think
Hmm.
that's probably the difference for me. It's just like I think that they're just gonna be too close to that tier.
It's a situation like the Chiefs where, they have Mahomes and Kelsey, so they'll be good. It's kind of similar. If you put a quarterback in there, those two will do well. They don't have a single tight end on the roster. They only have those two receivers on the roster in 2025, so they have some work to do. But, they let's say they draft Travis Hunter, that'll slot in like a glove, either at receiver or corner for them. And yeah, so they definitely, I think, you know, how long will those guys stick with them? Not, I don't think too long, but at least they have like Wirfs and Winfield and stuff like that. But yeah, they definitely are a rebuilding team, if anything. So,
Yeah, they're definitely on the range of rebuilding to Acorn. Uh,
oh, they have Trey Smith as well. I forgot about it. They
yeah,
got
Trey Smith.
him.
That's what I mean. Like they got like at least
Yeah,
half of an offensive line, um, which is I think
yeah.
more than you could say about the other teams below them.
They have left tackle, right guard. They don't have a center.
His Kappa sucked this year, didn't he?
Kappa was
Did
terrible this
Madden
year.
think he sucked? Is the question.
He
And
will he will definitely get hit. He
Anton
hasn't.
can play guard. He sucks, but he can play guard.
Yeah, I think yeah. So at least he could play guard. If anything, I think they keep him at right tackle.
Yeah,
And then
whether
I
you
don't know
find a
who they
guard or a
do.
tackle, you play it like that.
Yeah, and then they also need a center. Like they don't have a center on the roster. Linebacker, they only have
They only have David,
David.
who David is good enough. It doesn't really matter who else you put there. Brandon
Yeah,
Smith's been borderline All Pro 2 years in a row.
yeah, I know.
It's insane. He's such a monster. He just forced fumbles, so he's good enough. Um,
Yeah, and they got some young guys on the secondary. So yeah, I mean, it'll take some time, but they got some pieces here at least. So they're rebuilding. That's fine. Cardinals are also rebuilding, in my opinion,
Cardinals
or
are
at least
closer
like
to Acorn than rebuilding even, but yeah, their whole roster like so. I talk about the Bucks having players like the Cardinals get to like 75 overall in the first page.
yeah, I know.
Like you don't get to
Like
the second page before you get to bad players. Like
my opinion of the Cardinals roster is that it's similar to the Saints in the sense that like they have a lot of resources and stuff to work with. will they do that to supplement a lot of like their young players? And I don't know if they will do that. Well, we haven't really seen an indication that they will do that. But we will see because they have a lot of young guys that you feel good about. Like they have Kamari Lassiter, they have Brian Brzee, which is a good trade. I was definitely not pleased about that one.
Yeah,
Like they have like Kirby Joseph and stuff. Like they have a lot of young guys
it's all
that's
it's
like,
all
oh, these are,
safeties. It's like
yeah, all safeties, and Theo Johnson has been cool, and he might be something next, in the future.
it's
Weapons need
it's
work.
it's like the meme though. It's just like so you get the jerky and it's just like oops, it's all silicone packets. It's just all
Hmm.
safeties. But
Like like this,
it,
like assuming let's say 2025, a lot of like their young guys like step up. This could be a really strong team, and they have like 15 draft picks or whatever, and over 100 million in cap. I just think they just need to add some good players and supplement that with like their young guys that they can build around. But I don't know. Plus, what are they going to do at quarterback? Oh no, they have Lawrence. Sorry, I
yeah, they
thought they
got
still had
T-Law.
Howell.
But yeah, T-Law is gonna be worse next year with the
They didn't
carryovers.
extend him
But
yet. Oh, that's the other question. Like
T-Law's
he's
extended. Oh, no, he's not.
is he? No, he's
Did
not.
they not
Oh,
pay him? Oh man, I forgot that the Jags didn't pay him at all here. So yeah, they gotta pay him, and it's like, are you gonna be able to get a discount for him with the market how it is? I don't know.
I don't know. So yeah, I would put him in rebuilding. But it just kind of depends on like what the Cardinals do. I think they're very primed up to, you know, do a lot of good things with that roster. Just I don't know if they have the appetite for it. I guess you know what I mean. But we'll see what they do. That's kind of my stance, at least looking like they got a bunch of guys like I would be excited about, like Byron Young, some guys in the secondary. Yeah, I don't think they really have many like. It's weird. Like
Their
they have.
tackles are probably worse than the league. Um,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
because Guyton's even a guard. He played tackle and a poor tackle at that this year.
Yeah,
And so they need
they
two
had John
tackles.
Michael
They
Schmidt.
need two starting top line wide receivers. You can run back with Brooks at running back here. He's gonna be healthy. And Estime, I guess that's fine. Defensively, corners are good ish. Um,
Yeah, it's just they just need
they need
personally. I
more than
just think
Byron
they
Young
just
in
need.
pass rush. That's the other thing.
Me personally, I just the way I see it is like if they go in and get like some, let's say hypothetically, right? Hypothetically, let's say the Cardinals trade for Jalen Ramsey, right? Stuff like that. Like, hey, we'll toss you one of our five third rounders for Jalen Ramsey. That automatically boosts up that secondary a ton because now they can let those young guys kind of develop, but they have like an elite guy outside there. But whatever. Just stuff like that where they can bring in some dudes, in weapons and the offensive line. Do they bring in Teron Armstead maybe? That's
Yeah.
something to think about. But
Armstead, they probably have a bunch of money too. So it's like, or Keenan Allen. You don't like to rely on Keenan Allen, but he's going to be a better option than a lot of things out there.
yeah, like if they gave him like a 1 year, $10 million, whatever, like let's say, just like one of those typical 1 year vet contracts because they're gonna have like 120 million in cap. Like they have plenty of money. If they do moves like that, they definitely assuming like, they play like they did, this season, like they definitely could become, like a steady playoff contender. But yeah, it seems like they just kind of are sticking to building the draft and taking it slow and steady. But they're right. I put them in the same thing as like the Saints, kind of like what they're going to do. So we'll see.
But yeah, Rams. I think they are also rebuilding still. Because I just don't
Yeah,
think the roster has anything actually really going for it. Besides they shot for the moon. Um, they get some money now
I
this year at least.
they do. Let me take a look. I mean, they definitely have some holes. They have some guys as well. I would probably put. Yeah, I would keep rebuilding. I was gonna say like they're kind of mid, but they're still, they kind of, this is kind of like a house money type of season. They have plenty of draft picks and everything, but they're still rebuilding. They're going to look to do like some long term stuff, and I'm sure they're happy about like how Caleb has played for them. They have guys like Nick Benito and Nick Herbig and Christian Benford and stuff like that. So they got some guys like, and they're building a core like Ernest Jones as well. Offensive line definitely could use some work. I think they have, honestly, I think they have like two guys that you're happy about like long term. Let me think here. Like they have Zach Frazier, who's a good pick at center, and then they kind of have Will Hernandez, as like a solid guard, and that's kind of it. Like they don't actually Their tackles definitely need work. They need some offensive line help.
Yeah, so it's
Running
just
back needs
they're
help too.
honestly closer to Acorn than not, but they play too good and not at least give them some respect at
Yeah.
this point.
Do they bring back Tyler Boyd? Actually, no, he's under contract. He's
Yeah,
their only
Boyd
receiver under
all
contract.
ACFL All Pro, Tyler Boyd All Pro first team, Tyler Boyd.
Wow. Oh wait, is Jalen? Did they sign Jalen Coker?
Yeah,
How did that work?
UDFA. Yeah,
Yeah, but like, did they give him like a full deal?
I mean it
Or
doesn't matter. It's ERFA or it's full deal. It doesn't really change anything
yeah, whatever. Yeah.
because he's ERFA for two
So
years and then
they have
RFA.
that,
Yeah,
and then
Cokeheads unite.
um, and Boyd under contract. That's it. So yeah, they have some work to do, but they got some
Yeah,
pieces. So
just
yeah, rebuilding's fair. They
just
have plenty of draft picks.
just when you thought we were gonna go a podcast without mentioning the Cokeheads, I came through.
Yeah, I had to.
Had to do it. All right, two left. We are in the home stretch. We've been here for 2 hours.
Yeah, I know. Longer than I thought.
Yeah, we're not doing any previews, that's for sure. Uh, so I gotta go
Was
make
talking
dinner.
for too long. Sorry.
No, it's okay. This is good. Hey, we love it. Uh, anyway, Niners playoffs probably.
Yeah, I would put playoffs. Quarterback, like they're playing. They're a good team this year. Like I'd be scared to play them in the NFC Championship game, assuming I beat the Eagles, which I'm not confident in. But beyond now, like what happens if Rodgers retires, right? Then kind of similar vein to the Bengals, where like I feel like this team is kind of propped up by a lot of like really good players, but then there's not much behind it. Marshawn Lattimore has not looked good.
He is not since injury. He has not looked good. That's scary because they gave him that re-up
Yeah,
deal. Um, and
Nate
it's
Wiggins was a good pick. Like I like that. I mean,
corners
their
changing
edge duo is
teams does
great.
not bode well for them almost ever. Like
Yeah,
Ramsey was like different, obviously, but man, when you
right.
see these big money guys, it's just like Snead looks a little rough. Like they do not move teams well, which is just weird because of how isolated they are. You would
hmm
think that like as long as you get a similar like scheme ask, your system and your surroundings wouldn't change
Well,
necessarily.
I was gonna say it depends on what the scheme asks them to do. Like
Yeah,
some schemes want them to be like up close and jam and press versus like keep them out in zone and everything. I heard Snead got hurt and that's probably why. So maybe he bounces back
yeah.
next season type of thing. But yeah, Lattimore has been like hurt for a while and he hasn't been very good. And they have a lot of money committed to him. And um, their edge duo is great. They have Fred Warner still, but like
Got a lot of great players, but they have paid every penny for these great players. So then it's
yeah,
just like when you pay full price for everybody, can you still win without it? But I think they've done a great job. Byron Murphy looks pretty good in real life, awesome here. Nate Wiggins looks
mhm,
pretty good in real life.
yeah,
Less awesome here, but still pretty good. I think even Cole Bishop's pretty solid for the Bills in real life. So I think you feel good about their picks they made this year.
yeah. And
Um,
Zach Charbonnet's, I heard potentially he might be taking the starting role soon,
yep.
kind of thing there. DeAndre Swift was a good valued signing. So like that's what I feel like this team needs going forward. It's just like value deals like this Swift deal. Like he's paid $3 million this year and then $5 million next year. Like that's the type of stuff that this team needs.
Overpaid.
Just stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's especially like worst case scenario. Like let's say Rodgers retires, right? Then what do they do at quarterback? And then like let's say
Could you
Lattimore
imagine
takes a big
Justin Fields in a Niners uniform?
hit. I wonder what that looks like, right?
Who knows?
Can you imagine?
Could you
And
imagine?
they only have two receivers under contract. So it's like,
Yeah.
and they have 1 year left to Kittle. So, but anyway, like, this team is still really good. Like, it's just, they have some questions with limited assets. So, can they keep it going? Like, I think that's the question from like keeping them out of like being an elite team for a while. Like, at least with Philly, a lot of their guys, like, they have Hurts under contract for a while and they have like, AJ Brown and Amon Ra and Parsons and stuff like that. So I feel like they can sustain that for a while where hopefully they can still add like some young depth and keep it going, whereas the 49ers I feel like there's a little bit more question marks in that regard, I think. So
Even with Debo, like question marks around him too, just because he can't get open against man coverage. So it's like,
Yeah, I
what
heard
are
he
you doing?
might be more. He actually was kind of cooked this season. I feel like with some
Yeah,
stuff
and
and
he drops were real bad too. So
drafts for bad. Yeah, and
yeah.
he might get traded. I heard potentially like that's on the table.
He was talking about how it was
Like,
just an opportunity thing, and then he went out and had like 4 drops the next game. So it's like, he
hmm
really showed us on Twitter. Uh,
but yeah, it's still a strong team, and um, yeah, I mean, theoretically, like they could be elite and really quick. I don't know. I think playoff is fair for them. So, and finally, we have Seattle. What do you think?
well, I mean, I don't mean to put any pressure on us, but if we put them in mid, we have a perfect triangle going here of our rankings.
We do.
4, 4, 7, 10, 7, 4.
I think mid. So, if I was to think about Seattle, I personally thought they would be a playoff team and stuff like that. They're just kind of a situation where it's like they have young guys that you just hope they develop and they have plenty of assets. I think Seattle will be aggressive this year to try to like get some elite dudes in here. Like, they were interested in Chris Jones, for example, right? So stuff like that, I could see them doing something like that, and maybe Michael Penix being their guy going forward. They can kind of really become like a solid playoff team, but I think they just have a couple questions on like the interior defensive line is kind of rough, right? They could use some upgrades at corner. Offensive line could use some upgrades occasionally, stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
think mid is kind of fair, especially because like didn't they kind of struggle to just play well this year? Like
they
it
just
just
didn't. Yeah, they didn't put it together. It was they had their moments where they could have really finished it. They finished awfully. So it's like they had their moments where they could have taken the reins, and then they just fell off. Um,
yeah, like even like
their
Bijan, I feel like didn't play very well. Like
Bijan was second in rushing yards. It's
oh
just
okay, never
the
mind.
problem was in the sim it was just so low volume this year. Second rushing
Mm-hmm.
yards was 1,100 yards. First was 1,300, just under. So
Yeah,
it's like,
I know Pollard was up there, but he got hurt for a long time,
yeah,
so that kind of
the guys who were playing better got hurt. Like McCaffrey was there, but he was hurt. Obviously, he shouldn't even started, but whatever. Uh,
yeah.
so it's like the guys who put up the numbers that would have been like 2,000 yard, nah, well, wouldn't have even been 2,000, but like 1,500, 1,600 yards got hurt. But yeah, Bijan didn't necessarily play great. Not in the level they needed, but he was the second best running back in the league this year. So it's
Yeah.
tough to say
I
anything.
think I
Just
think Seattle's like on the cusp of being like a perennial playoff team. Like they have some offensive line questions. Like Tyron Smith was cooked this year. Like, and does he retire? I don't know. Like they have a whole left tackle now if that happens, and they could use some more elite players across the board. But they have plenty of assets. Like I think they're right there on the cusp of being like a constant playoff team. Assuming like Penix does well, and Jared Verse, they have to be really happy about, of course, and stuff like that. And they've had some good hits along the line, like Neighbors was a great draft. Oh, I'm so jealous of
they're
them. I really
they
tried to get
they are a
Neighbors.
process has been way better than the results team for me. They've drafted well.
Absolutely.
It's just and the guys have even hit, but they just haven't quite put together yet. So I think they're waiting on one of the quarterbacks to really hit for them. I love that they have two chances at it. That's great with all the assets they had.
Yeah.
So just they gotta see if one of them does, and then to what extent one of them does. Penix looked really good that last week. He was slinging that thing.
Yeah, he was. I'm
So
sure they should feel happy with him, and they have like a great weapon set up for them. It's just a couple questions across the board, and them putting it together. So I'm definitely bullish on Seattle, just like the Raiders, where I'm like really excited to see how they play personally. But I think especially with this season, it really just kind of was like a mid team. Like it played like you know what I mean.
hmm
So
I need to see it. I need to see it before I put them in playoffs. Some
well,
teams I
I
don't
mean,
necessarily need to see it, but I need to see it from them just because
they're right there.
I've had them expected to do it for actually a couple years now, I think, and they haven't quite done it to the level I thought they would. So obviously it's been with Russ though, so they're actually gonna have a changing the guard there this next year.
Yeah,
So
no,
we'll
I mean
see.
like let's say Penix plays well, right? And let's say they just keep on going. Let's say they swing for like I don't know. Let's say hypothetically they trade for Jonathan Allen or something or Jalen Ramsey or whatever. They could really be like in a really good spot to just be like a long-term playoff team. I think they're right there. Like they're just this was just a disappointing season. Like I even thought they were going to be a playoff team. I would even argue that you could put them in a playoff team right now. Just didn't go well, but it's just got to be put together, I guess. So
Yeah, I think just the NFC, like these five, six teams in mid, it's like you kind of feel like you should put a couple of them in playoffs, but just like, can you pick two of them to do it?
Hmm.
I guess it's
Yeah,
three.
I don't know.
It's like I don't know. It's like I feel like if I were ranking my teams I thought would do it, right, I would go Detroit and I'd go Carolina just because somebody has to win the South, and it would be Seattle.
Right.
But I don't. My degree of confidence in those is just not nearly high enough to. My degree of confidence that it's even going to be a of these six is not very high. So it's just tough because like
Yeah.
it just could be one of the bad teams.
Yeah. I'll have to see. I mean, like, if anything, I think there's a situation where, or not situation, I think there's a scenario where you can see like Seattle taking over the West. Like, but then again, you can argue that, well, the Rams have Caleb and stuff like that, and they're at a better prime spot. And then Arizona has resources galore. Like, what if they take over? So it's an interesting situation. But I would feel really good if I was running Seattle right now. So I definitely think they're just on the cusp. So it's close. But I can't believe, wow, we spent 2 hours talking about this.
I mean, I'm not shocked. As soon as we got to like four teams in the first like 35 minutes, I was like, yeah, we're gonna be here. We're gonna be here for a
Yeah,
bit. I'd say we're gonna pick
spent
up
a lot of time.
about 45 minutes in. I said we're gonna pick up the pace, and we proceeded to not pick up the pace even a little bit.
Yeah, that's my
Classic.
bad, I guess.
No, we do. This happens every fucking time, dude. Every podcast we are like this.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see like what people are really going to disagree with on this tier or what they are going to agree with. I'm going to be curious. Do you think there's anything here that's like a hot take kind of thing that the team's going to be like, dude, what are you thinking? What are you talking about putting them in this tier? Like, is there anything here that
I
you
mean,
think?
Acorn's gonna be mad at us
Well, why?
because we named the tier after him.
Well, you named it after him, not
No,
me,
we
but
did. We did that. It was a
we.
complete team effort. Team effort.
Yeah, all right, that's fine.
I don't know. I feel like it's probably the hot take is Carolina not being a playoff team because they've been so dominant the last 2 years. I'd say that's probably the hottest of them. But I don't even know.
Yeah, I feel like I put a decent defense on why I thought
No, and
that.
I totally agree. I ended up probably would say listen, yeah, I would
Like,
have
I
put him
admit
in
I
mid anyway.
overestimated. I definitely overestimated Green Bay last when I did that tier list. I know me and Mock when we did it. Did I do it with Mock? I think I did it with. Yeah, I think it was just me and Mock where we did it. I definitely think we overestimated Green Bay. And that was just like a terrible, terrible spot. Like thinking back at it, but yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't be surprising if like Carolina just keeps on going and is a constant playoff team and like really good, and they just keep winning the South. I don't know. I just think there's some question marks and there's not a lot of avenues to really address them. You know what I mean? They just kind of have to like, I don't know. I guess rely on Bryce and the weapons. Does that? Do you think it's kind of the same thing in that regard?
Yeah. I mean, it's just I don't think I fully give credit to how much the weapons could regress as well. So their method of winning could probably fall out from under them too.
Yeah, I mean, like they got 1 year of Adams left. I mean, they could extend him, but what if, like, how long, how much longer does he go? They have a Dunze who's, a good draft pick, sure, but
He's not
other than
really going to
that,
pan out to that level in real life, at least until middle of next year. And if he doesn't hit in a big way next year, is he going to be able to be the kind of weapon they need? I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
Because
I don't know.
they
Yeah,
needed like truly like dominant weapons to be able to win these games. Whether it's Bryce or the wide receivers being that weapon, it's somebody had to be explosive.
it's crazy. It's kind of like the opposite of my games, where I feel like Waddle's been a ghost for a lot of like our games, but we've had guys like Holbert stepping up and being clutch in those games. It's kind of an interesting comparison seeing us.
Well, they just didn't give any opportunity for anybody to not be that dude. Because like Deontay's their worst guy, who's still like a decent like rated superstar guy in Madden. So like they left
Yeah.
nothing to chance. But Fant's not going to be that guy next year. Deontay's gone maybe, or at least not that guy. And then yeah, so Dunze and Devontae.
Yeah, that's really it. I think. Hold on, let me take a quick glance again. They have Mechie, who's he's had a rough year this year.
Yeah,
I've watched a decent bit of Texans games. So they got Mechie. This guy Isaiah Williams, who I have no idea who he is. Just an undrafted guy, I guess, and Adams and Adunze, and then wow, yeah, just Fenton Strange. So um, yeah, it's gonna take some work, but at least they have some high end guys there. But it's not the worst situation. I just think like there's a scenario where like things don't go well, and then all of a sudden like they're kind of in a tough spot where they really don't have any draft picks beyond day three stuff. So what do they do? Trade for some vets, kind of like how I did for BJ Hill type of thing. And I think that would probably be like their best solution for some stuff and do some value deals. So maybe they try to trade Adams this offseason. Who knows?
That wouldn't be the worst, but what do you get for Adams? I don't think that there was a ton extra in that market other than them.
I talked to him about Adams at least.
Would you
I
give
don't
more
remember
than
if
a
I talked.
second last year?
No,
That's what I mean.
no.
So that's what I mean. They offered the first, but like, when we start talking about now, 1 less year, 1 year older, teams that
Hmm.
were, I don't think anybody else offered more than a second.
I know. I think the most I offered was like a second that became a first type of thing, and
Hmm.
um, that was when I was offering like around draft time. Like I know I asked again like mid-season. I think when Carolina was kind of struggling, and that's where I was trying to shop around. Where it's like, okay, I think potentially I could do this, but that was before I started going on like that terrible losing streak kind of thing, and I don't think they were willing to move him for a second. I have to double check. I don't remember,
But
but I'm
if they're
sure
are they even going to get the second outright with just a year now? They might, but are
they
they going to
might.
do it for the second outright? Is that going to be enough to make them
That's the bigger
move?
question, I think,
Is that
because I
enough to be
mean,
worth it? I don't know.
you have teams like I mean, for example, I mean, think about Arizona for a second. They have so many draft picks. Bringing in a guy like Adams maybe makes sense.
But if Carolina
Um,
still wants to win, are they going to arm the like one of the teams that really
right,
push
I don't
them
know.
in like a wild card scenario if it comes to that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an AFC equivalent in that regard, but
But like
yeah, I
all
don't
the
know.
AFC
Maybe they,
teams are like pretty much set up and like out of like resources. Like
yeah.
you can't really see the Bills, Ravens, Bengals, like even the
I could
Jets
see
or the
the Dolphins
Steelers
being
really
interested.
doing it or needing to.
I could see the Dolphins being like, hey, we'll toss you a third rounder for him, but
But even
would
that, it's like it's
Carolina?
worse. It's got to be a second plus.
Well, Dolphins don't have that unless the Carolina Panthers want to take a 2026 pick.
That's what I mean, though.
But
It's like it's got to be a second plus. Maybe it's Kansas City.
right,
Maybe Kansas City sees Devontae, but I
maybe.
just that would be such a departure from how they've been. I don't see any
I
way
don't. I
that
don't
they're
see
the team
it.
to do it. They would
Yeah.
need somebody who's like late 20s, not somebody who's going to retire next year. You know.
Right. Right. So yeah, I'm not really sure like what they do. I think, I mean, there's probably a few teams in that would be interested, but they probably just don't have the market that they would want to recoup because they traded. I think they traded a first round pick and plus to get him. So
Hmm.
it's
It was a first round pick plus Wicks at least.
yeah. Because I'm also thinking, didn't they trade up for a Dunze? That how that happened?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
they
pretty
traded
sure they
up for
traded
him?
up for Odunze because they would not have been in Odunze range normally.
Yeah,
So that's why they have such a deficit of picks,
yeah.
which
Like
I
they traded up
think
for a
was
Dunze.
a bit aggressive, I would say, given the state of the
Well,
team. But
it was aggressive. I don't know if they did it to counter me because I was definitely sniffing around to trade up. Like there was times where I spoke to trade up to try to get neighbors and stuff like that or a Dunze and didn't seem like it was possible. And I think the Panthers definitely was like, all right, we got Bryce, let's go all in, let's get him some weapons and do it. And so I think maybe they kind of I don't know if they caught wind of that I was sniffing around, but I definitely think they were like, all right, now's our time to kind of really go all in on him and do it. And hopefully, I mean, they're still in it, so maybe it turns out to be the good decision for them. I guess we'll have to see how these next couple weeks play out. But I mean, right now I think Carolina's probably the healthiest out of the NFC team, so I think they have a really good shot.
I just don't think they're gonna get that defensive performance again. That'd be crazy if they can go on a run where their defense is locked down.
Yeah,
That'd be something.
I'm curious to see how they play against San Fran. I think, unfortunately for them, I think San Fran is probably like the worst matchup for them, where like their defense is suspect, and Aaron Rodgers has been playing really good with both DJ Moore and I forget the other receiver.
Well, it's
I'm
DJ
blanking right
Moore,
now.
Debo Samuel, and
And Debo.
Jerry Judy. Like
Oh
for
yeah, wow.
this year, like that we didn't talk about him because he's going to be expiring and they have no money to pay him. But like Jerry Judy, like as a three on this team is crazy right now.
Yeah, exactly. So like I feel like basically with Carolina's defensive struggles and stuff like that, 49ers is a rough matchup for them. But if they pull through, I think probably that's like their biggest test because I think the winner of the Giants and Eagles is definitely going to, I would say, maybe an underdog versus them if you think about it. Like my team is kind of battered up, and I don't know if they can win a shootout versus the Panthers. And then you have the Eagles who are down a quarterback. So like, what happens? You know what I mean? So I don't know. If I basically, I don't know if it's me being a little too pessimistic, but I feel like the winner of the San Fran Carolina game is definitely going to be favored to the winner of our matchup. At least thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I think those two teams feel like this has got to be their year.
Yeah,
Along with the
yeah,
Eagles to an extent, just because I mean the team is so ready. But like, yeah, of these four, like the Giants, are the one that feel the most stable long term. And then it's just like Carolina. It's just like this has kind of got to be a last hurrah. Definitely for the Niners with Rodgers. This is gonna be the last time they have a Rodgers that's gonna play like an
yeah.
MVP. So it's like both these guys are sitting here like, man, this has got to be it. Like
Hmm.
less so for the Panthers because at least they have a young quarterback who like, okay, maybe this is it for this version of the team, but we got time. We can maybe reset. Um, the team can look similar and come back at some
Right.
point in the future. Versus the Niners are going to have to look entirely different whenever they come back. Um,
Yeah, and Philly, at least like, they have Hurts and stuff like that, and they have elite players that are, young for the most part. But you never know. Like they could have a situation where like they just like I think they won some games this year, like barely and stuff like that. Like what happens if they lose a couple and then they have another major injury and they can't overcome that? So what happens there? But definitely think at least out of like the three, I feel the best about Philly right now, personally.
yeah, I mean, right now the Philly roster is so nice. Like they just needed to have not disaster at quarterback. But honestly, it's anybody's ball game for this. But a lot of them feel like it's just kind of their time.
Hmm.
Versus the AFC, like I definitely think I'm on sort of a last run. The Jets are at the very beginning of a run, at least as far as
Yeah,
quarterback goes. And then the Bengals are kind of on a last run with this team, but they're going to have guys long term. And the Ravens feel the most secure in that side of things, as far as like they're going to be back next year. Um,
yeah,
but
I agree.
they're getting a good Lamar right now, so they haven't always been able to bank on that. So maybe this is it's always tough. It's tough to be in this situation and knowing that. And obviously, I've experienced this firsthand. I made a Super Bowl, and that was the peak of the mountain for me so far. It's very tough to think, no matter what you do, this is very likely the highest you'll get.
Do you think there's a chance? How good of a chance do you think there is of a total New York Super Bowl?
Not great, honestly. Just because, like,
Yeah.
I just don't like the Jets matched up against either the Bengals or the Ravens specifically. I think that the Giants can match up well enough with any of those teams to be in a toss-up range. I don't think the Jets do, and the Steelers early in the year really whooped the Jets' ass in a way that
Yeah.
doesn't feel great either for the Jets coming in. But like I think you give them a toss-up in this game, but like I think that next one feels more daunting. It feels like a mountain to climb in a way. So I don't like it this year. I like our chances going forward of it happening. Um, but for this year, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought the Jets would have won last week. So we're looking at a
Yeah, me too.
much higher chance of this happening than before.
It was a very lucky win.
It was a
Like,
very lucky win, which is why it doesn't feel like it's changed their odds much, other than advancing around, because like they really shouldn't be here. But like, do I think the Bills would have beaten the Steelers to get there? Yes.
I don't know.
So they did beat the team to get
Yeah.
there. Because like the Bills' big thing from the past time they played was that the Steelers' defensive line rattled Josh Allen and he was completely out of the game. Josh hadn't gotten rattled like that to this point. He threw a bunch of picks, but those were all just like they jumped all the routes, right? So like
Hmm.
hasn't gotten rattled like that, and the offensive line for the Bills is much better. So like I don't think that advantage would have been there for Pittsburgh. And the Pittsburgh defensive line hasn't played that great anyway throughout the whole year. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, I'm just thankful that I'm here right now, and anything is house money and stuff. I'm hoping that I could beat the Eagles. I don't want to be the team that loses them three times in a row, but I think we kept it close each matchup. So hopefully the team executes because I feel like when they do execute, they could beat anybody.
I
It's
do
just
think I think I've got you guys. If I was doing like lines, right? I think I'd put this as a true pick 'em, which with the home field, like I think you're favored by a couple points here on a neutral field. Just
mm,
because of the quarterback situation, I think you guys played really well. The defense has come together, and I just don't think the Eagles will be able to overcome Carr struggling first game with them. I just don't think he's going to put it together in a real way. He struggled
maybe
throughout the ACFL. So it's like, I don't think that they're going to be able to overcome it because they were getting MVP hurts during your first game and they still barely put up points on you. And they got turnover help.
they did. Yeah, I think we lost by 3 points and we fumbled twice
Yeah.
in their red zone.
So it's like they got turnover help and they barely put up any points at all. So it's like, okay, do I think they can muster more than before? Yes, but how much more? I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, like I'm hopeful. I don't like. There's definitely been matchups where I'm like, oh man, I got no confidence whatsoever. Like I think we have a shot, and if we win, then I definitely. Um, Again, I think I have a shot versus the winner of San Fran and Carolina.
Oh,
I don't think it's
I
like,
think
oh yeah,
100%. I think you do.
we have a shot.
The
I mean,
Niners are
like
the
the
team that
injuries
I
hurt.
feel the worst about on that side because of the talent at the top. Carolina has just the weapons, right? Just the weaponry can overpower you. Niners have defensive and offensive weaponry that can totally mess up a game in different ways, which is why I feel better about them.
It's going to come down to Stroud. It's really what it's going to
Yep.
come down to. Like, is he going to be derpy and take sacks and not
It's
really
because he's
play
rusty.
well?
He didn't
Then
play week 18, you know?
yeah, he was rusty. And he played in the snow, so. Um, but I mean, losing, we had a couple, guys injured on defense, and losing Waddle's
Dude,
rough. But
if your
well,
injuries weren't here, you'd be looking at legit. Like
I think Hendrickson can come back. If we win, I think he
Hendrickson can
can come
come
back.
back, yeah, but I'm just talking about like, if you had Branch, Hendrickson, and Waddle full throttle for these games, I think you'd be the
Yeah,
favorites.
probably. Yeah, I mean, it's rough. It was rough losing Waddle. I mean, we lost Dex too throughout most of the season, or not most, but the middle of the season when we had like those brutal losses. Like we didn't have Dex either. Like,
Yeah, you're gonna need some vintage Kayvon Thibodeau games, no question about it.
yeah, we'll see. Now I'm excited.
Yeah,
Excited for it.
it's gonna be.
So
We said we were gonna do any preview, and look at us doing some preview.
here
Uh,
we go.
but here we are at
So
2.5 hours. We're gonna call it.
yeah, I'm gonna go get some food.
I
So
gotta make some food. I gotta go to the store because I didn't get anything before, so I was indecisive.
all right.
All
Sorry for
right.
taking up too much of your time with my
No,
talking. So
it's okay, man. It is all right. But I've been Steele. He's been Bert. Another week in the ACFL is about to be underway. I'll see you guys all on Friday for the live show. I will do the announcement on that coming up too. I forgot to actually physically announce what time when the games are and when game plans are due, so I will do that tonight. Of course, you guys already have that by the time this gets released, but hey, whatever. Thanks for joining me,
sounds
Bert.
good. No problem. All right, I'll talk to you later. All right, see ya.